Good evening and welcome to the October 21st, 2019 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to invite Jeanette Rosenbaum to come to the podium. And if everyone could please rise, and Jeanette's going to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is reflection, and I would like to call everyone's attention to the tragic passing of longtime legendary Congressman Elijah Cummings, who passed this past week. And if everyone could join us in having him in their thoughts as we have a moment of silence, that would be great. Thank you very much. Next, we have approval of minutes, and we have 3 sets of minutes tonight. The first one is from the work session on Monday, September 9th. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries 4-0. Next, we have the minutes from the regular meeting on Monday, September 16th. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move approval. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries 4-0. And next, we have the minutes from Monday, October 7th. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move approval, Mayor.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries 4-0. Next, we have appointments, and tonight we have several appointments to various appointments and reappointments. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval of your resolution of appointments and reappointments. First, the Environmental Affairs Committee, Jeanette Rosenbaum for a 2-year term expiring in October of 2021. Multicultural Affairs Committee, 2-year term to Crispin Cole, expiring October 2021. Transportation Committee, Danielle Acosta, a 2-year term expiring October 2021. And reappointments to the Educational Enrichment Committee, both 2-year terms, to Mark Ezrin, to a 2-year term expiring October 2021, and Ghislaine Tilseco, 2-year term expiring October 2021. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries 4-0. I know Jeanette is in the audience because she just read the pledge. Are there any other people whose names we just read as being appointed? Not seeing it. Well, let's give Jeanette a great round of applause for volunteering. It's really a great way to get involved in your community and do some good things. Next, we have presentations, and we're going to go a little bit out of order from the agenda, council members. We're all going to come down first. We're going to do municipal government works, then we're going to do the American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage, and then we're going to do GIS. Okay, so we are tonight going to proclaim Municipal Government Works Month, and to read because we happen to have the president of the Maryland Municipal League on our council, Mr. Ryan Spiegel here. I'm going to let him read the actual proclamation, but here's the background material. As the level of government closest to the people, local government offers its citizens the best opportunity to be heard and to influence the course of the community. Self-governance is inherently dependent on the awareness of citizens and the level of commitment they have in regard to participating in government, and you all are doing a great job at it. The Maryland Municipal League encourages local municipalities to celebrate Municipal Government Works Month in an effort to educate citizens about the role and function of government. The theme for MML this year is Reimagine Tomorrow, which happens to be Ryan's theme. Everyone is challenged to consider different means of achieving results, not continuing with the status quo. Municipal Government Works Month will be extended into December. The city is participating in a social media campaign by submitting innovative ways of conducting business. 3 examples include Extreme Finances, the Economic Development Toolbox, and the Pavement Management System. Extreme Finances, funded in part by a grant from the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, is an 8-month after-school program culminating in 50 student participants, each receiving a savings account deposit of $250. The Economic Development Toolbox is a program that spurs reinvestment in commercial properties. And lastly, the Pavement Management System employs a series of lasers and high-speed cameras to assess the condition of city roads in order to optimize maintenance schedules and assist staff in budgeting for infrastructure projects. And if you'd speak to Neil Harris for any more than 2 minutes, you're going to hear all about this. To celebrate Maryland cities and towns, MML will post ideas along with descriptions and photos on its Facebook and Twitter accounts under the hashtag Reimagine Tomorrow. This is a great opportunity to showcase our municipalities and give statewide exposure to innovative solutions and success stories. It will also be a useful educational exercise for others to adopt or adapt great ideas from other cities and towns. And now I'm going to let Ryan present the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
You guys want to hold the flag while we do the proclamation?
Let's do that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to invite up to join us our Legislative Affairs Manager, Michelle Potter, who serves on the Board of Directors of the statewide Maryland Municipal League with me, and so it's appropriate that as we acknowledge MML and the program that we're going to be doing together with MML as a city, that she join us. This proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg reads, whereas the city was incorporated in 1878, and whereas Maryland is home to 157 municipalities and 2 special taxing districts, and whereas municipal government represents the most responsive level of government, allowing citizens to have direct access to elected officials, and whereas in an effort to educate citizens about municipal government and the importance of their participation, the City of Gaithersburg is proud to promote municipal government awareness. And whereas municipalities have enhanced the quality of life for their respective residents, maintaining natural and historic sites and structures, and helping to make Gaithersburg and Maryland great places to live, work, learn, and play. Now, therefore, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in him as Mayor of Gaithersburg, does hereby proclaim November and December 2019 as Municipal Government Works Months in the City of Gaithersburg, supporting this year's theme, Reimagine Tomorrow, and encourages all to consider new and different means of achieving results through innovative solutions. And it's proclaimed this 21st day of October and signed by Mayor Ashman. Thank you, Mayor.
1, 2, 3. One more.
Thank you, guys. Okay, now I would like to invite Alana Norman from the First Employee Association of the Indian Health Service. We're going to proclaim American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month. Hi, how are you? You too. American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month is a time to celebrate the rich cultural traditions and proud ancestry of Native Americans and recognize the vital contributions they have made and continue to make to the art, history, traditions, and diversity of our society. In 1990, President George H.W. Bush approved a joint resolution designating November 1990 as National American Indian Heritage Month. Similar proclamations under variants on the name, including Native American Heritage Month and National American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month, have been issued each year since 1994. The key purpose of these resolutions has been to encourage federal, state, and local governments, groups and organizations, and the people of the United States to observe such a month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. The city of Gaithersburg recognizes the importance of celebrating the heritage, history, art, and traditions of those who were the original inhabitants of our country. A social powwow held in partnership with Employees First Employee Association of Indian Health Service will take place on Saturday, November 2nd, 2019 from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Activity Center. The event is free and open to the public, and it's awesome. I should say, that's my, say parenthetically. Activities include traditional music, dancing, Native arts vendors, children's games, arts and crafts, and food for sale. And we have, as I mentioned before, Alana Norman from Employees First Employee Association of the Indian Health Service to accept the proclamation. And I'm going to read it. And while I do, I'm going to invite everybody from the Multicultural Affairs Committee who'd like to join us up here. Please come on up. So, proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg, whereas American Indians and Alaska Natives have played a vital role in this country and their many contributions have enhanced freedom, prosperity, and greatness in America today. And whereas by celebrating American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month, we affirm our commitment to remember those contributions and to honor the unique heritage of our continent's first inhabitants. And whereas this special observance reflects the rich heritage and great influence that American Indians and Alaska Natives have had on our nation's history and culture, and also reflects our continuing commitment to American Indian and Alaska Native tribal governments as an integral part of the social, political, and economic fabric of the United States. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim November 2019 as American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month in the city of Gaithersburg, and urge all city residents to participate in this observance, thereby fostering the celebration of diversity and keeping strong the rich cultural foundation of our community. Proclaim this 21st day of October, signed by me. And let's give Alana a great round of applause for being here. If you'd like to.
I will.
Please.
Hello, I'm Alana Norman. I am from the Pawnee Nation of Oklahoma, and I have lived here on the East Coast for about 16 years and in this area. And I would greatly like to extend my appreciation to the mayor and the city of Gaithersburg for this opportunity to showcase our culture. And again, come out November 2nd. We're having our powwow. And you can see dancers, native vendors, and food as well. So come on out.
It really is an awesome event. So, last proclamation we have for this evening is GIS Day in the city of Gaithersburg. I'd like to invite Jan Kim, GIS Division Manager, Justin McCubbin, GIS Specialist, and Kirk Eby, GIS Planner. Good to see you all here tonight. And I'm just going to skip right to the proclamation. They have a presentation for us right afterwards. Proclamation of the Mayor and Council of Gaithersburg, whereas Geographic Information System, parenthetically GIS, technology plays a vital role in the daily operations of the city of Gaithersburg, increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of its business functions and the equity of its policy decisions. And whereas government services and assets are tracked and analyzed using GIS to create a comprehensive view of their distribution and to guide their improvement, and whereas GIS allows complex data and spatial relationships to be visualized and presented clearly to the public, the mayor and city council, committees, and city staff, and whereas collaboration to achieve better GIS data and products is fostered among the neighboring jurisdictions, city, county, and state to build a more accurate and up-to-date GIS system which promotes better decision-making. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim November 13th, 2019 as GIS Day and November 10th through 16th, 2019 as Geography Awareness Week. Proclaim this 21st day of October 2019 and signed by me, and let's give our staff a great round of applause. Thank you. And you guys are about to see how cool this GIS stuff is.
In the city GIS system, we house and maintain many hundreds of data layers, and some of them city staff creates and maintains those data. Address points is one of those data layers. Today, we would like to present how addresses are created and its many uses in GIS system and other enterprise system, and showcase some mapping analysis.
So for address creation, we do follow the county E911 guidelines, which dictate where addresses should be placed in order and suite numbers by floor, things like that. For new addresses, typically there's a subdivision plat, and as an example here on the screen, and they're written. The addresses are written on the plat, and that plat is then recorded, and that then gets the address into the State Department of Assessments and Taxation system. In addition, the city does create an official address assignment letter and sends that out to other agencies such as the post office and utilities. And then we do add the new address to the GIS system, which makes it available to other city systems. For commercial suites, those are a little bit more simplified. Basically, we coordinate with the property owner or management company and add the suites directly to GIS.
Once the addresses are in the GIS system, it can be utilized in many different ways. Here is an example of the address information powering one of our public mapping applications. Once user enters or select the address information, since it's locationally enabled, we can find out if the address belongs to the city and what recycling zone, polling place, or school service areas might be. Address information can be also tied with the government services and activities that we perform, and we will be looking at some of the examples in a few slides.
So addresses are also used and shared with the Census Bureau. So all of the address letters, whether they're an assignment letter, or sometimes we have a change letter if an address needs to change, or a verification letter if there's some confusion about a particular address, we do a verification of that address. And we do send all those letters to the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau uses that to update their records and their master lists of addresses. And those are used in their annual population estimates and in the American Community Survey, which is sent out to residents, a random sample of residents. And also in the 5-year economic census, which is sent out randomly to businesses within the city and the county as well. And for the decennial census, which is done every 10 years, we do participate in the local update of census addresses, or LUCA, which is essentially their master list of addresses that they want to send the census to. We also participate in the new construction program, and that program captures buildings that are under construction that will likely be finished by April 1st, but are not currently in the census address list, so we do participate in that. Both of those programs, by the way, we have completed for this particular decennial census. And both of those programs ensure that all residents will receive the census. And on the screen there is an example of a map that was created using the American Community Survey information, and it shows the total population around the city. The addresses are also used for notifications and to create mailing lists. So some of the development processes under zoning and other parts of the code require notifications to be sent out. An example of that is here on the map with all the addresses within 200 feet of Duval Park. So for public hearings, we also do notifications similar to the 200 feet within the area of interest. Sometimes they're also used for public health reasons. So, for example, animal control will sometimes use the notifications to let people know that there might be a rabid animal near them. So those are sent out. They're also used to create mailing lists. So for the Labor Day Parade, for the In Gaithersburg magazine that's sent to residents in the city, and also for the holiday giving program.
Not only addresses empower the activities within GIS system, it also it leverages other enterprise systems. For example, InterGov is a land record management system mainly used by planning and code administration to track development review processes, various permits and license and such. And when InterGov, a new record is created, all the information relies on GIS address information or parcel, and they actively pull that information. So it's acting as a master repository of all this information. And it works similarly for Active.net. And VWorks is a new SMN system that is being implemented in public works. GIS will be playing very important role, not only addresses, but most of the asset systems, they are field location based. So those asset repository will be in GIS powering this enterprise system. Here's an example when the location from address information is combined with other services or activity that we are tracking, that it allows us to map the distribution. So on the left side, we are looking at animal control licenses. An animal control license itself is tracked in InterGov system, but since it's relying on GIS to provide address and allow address point location information, now we can map who has dog licenses and cat licenses and such. So that's the example on the left. And on the right side is a similar concept, but in this case, mapping rental house licenses.
So when looking at the spatial distribution of points, certain patterns can begin to emerge. GIS software provides us tools that we can use to analyze and visualize the patterns in different ways, some of which you see on the screen here. The top row of maps shows rates of participation among 5 to 17-year-olds in our sports program from 2017. That same data is also shown in the second row of maps, but as a density map, which more clearly shows the shifting pattern of participation throughout the city and across seasons, each column representing a season in which one or more sports are more dominant. We can then compare those patterns to certain socioeconomic or demographic variables from the census, such as we see in the bottom row, which begin to suggest relationships that might influence the patterns we see. Address point data powers even very complex geospatial analyses. This is a three-dimensional analysis of shifting trends in distribution among people who have received community services through our nonprofit partners at the city. And yes, we've been able to identify by stacking up basically 10 quarters worth of address point data where there are increasingly concentrated areas of need within the city, shown in red, as well as areas where those services are less frequently utilized, shown in blue.
So in summary, addresses are created by planning step and enter into GIS system. Once it's in the GIS system, it empowers many different GIS applications, enterprise systems. Mapping and analyzing our city services and activities allows the city to make data-driven decisions to better serve the community.
Thank you all very much. I look forward to this. We've done this now. I think this is the third year we've done a GIS presentation on, in honor of the proclamation of GIS Week and GIS Day. And each year it seems to get more and more awesome. I don't know. I'm a little geeky for this stuff. I don't see a lot of smiles and nodding heads in the background, but in the audience. But I mean, from our standpoint, it's really cool stuff. Anybody have any comments before we let them go? Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Kurt, Jan, Justin. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to public comments. And this is the time when the mayor and council would like to hear from anybody who'd like to speak on any topic that's not a public hearing topic. We do have one public hearing this evening. If you're here to speak about the proposal at Spectrum for Royal Farms and Starbucks, then hold off because we're going to get to that public hearing. If you're here to speak about anything else, this is the time. We ask that you keep your comments no more than 3 minutes. State your name and address or neighborhood if you're more comfortable for the record. When your time's down to 30 seconds, the timer will beep and turn yellow. When your time's up, it'll beep and turn red. Who would like to be our first speaker? I see all these signs. I figure someone wants to speak tonight.
The guy without the sign. Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
My name is Tom Vassar. I'm a resident of the Saybrook neighborhood. Been a resident of Gaithersburg for 36 years. Recently, you might have heard in the news that Bethesda was able to convince MCPS not to use their parks for purposes of locating schools in Bethesda. If MCPS can agree with Bethesda not to use their parks, why can't we get that agreement? But the more important question is how this came about. The reason it came about is because MCPS allowed the citizens of Bethesda to be involved in the process. And in fact, they were involved at a very early stage. Apparently, they were involved even before the site selection process. As you know, when in connection with our own site selection process involving Kelly Park, and you've heard this from me and others many times, the adjoining neighborhoods, we believe, were intentionally excluded from that process and never had a voice. As a result, the citizens of the neighborhoods adjoining Kelly Park are now faced with a site selection process that's been preordained and is now in a feasibility study stage. The only voice they have left at this time is this city council. And it is incumbent upon the city council to stand up to MCPS. If Bethesda can have their parks, why can't we have ours? Especially when there are suitable sites, alternative sites available that meet everybody's needs. We can have our school and we can protect Kelly Park. The, what is it called? The Woodwards Road Elementary School site is the one that I think makes the most sense. It is already owned by MCPS. The only thing they would have to do is relocate a Verizon cell tower. That's not a big deal. This council needs to stand up to MCPS. They need to do their job on behalf of the citizens of Gaithersburg. They need to be their voice because they have no other right now. This, as you know, is the last meeting before the election later this month. That's important. I believe that the citizens of this community, the thousands of them that will be impacted by the loss of Kelly Park and by the upcoming election, have a right to know now from each council member what their position is, because we don't know. I know they're doing the feasibility study. You can assume that's going to be whitewashed like the site selection was, and that Kelly Park will be approved. So based on the information you have as of this evening, I'd like you to tell this community and everyone watching, each council member, what is your position on Kelly Park? Thank you.
Tom. Please come on.
I'm Dave Anderson. I live at 402 Belgrove Road, Gaithersburg, right across the street from Kelly Park. Essentially, Tom said what I was going to say.
I saw your notes.
Yeah. The people around Kelly Park were denied their opportunity and their rights to determine what public land, how public land would be used. But you know that. Okay, you already know that. The site selection was skewed. We weren't allowed to participate. And when we tried to get the news media involved, it got squashed. That, you know, okay? So basically, we were denied our rights. What really matters at this point is the people of Bethesda, they got to exercise their rights right from the very beginning, okay? We're not a rich group of people. Apparently, if you are, like in Bethesda, you can get what you want, okay? But you all know that. You guys have been in politics long enough that money talks. I agree with Tom. I think it all boils down to the election and the positions that each of the council members have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send an email officially to each of the council members, basically saying this, maybe a little more elaborately, but short, sweet, to the point. And I'm basically going to just ask you, what's your position on this? How are you going to vote? Are you going to send it back to the site selection committee like it ought to be? If we participate and Kelly Park is selected again, okay, but it ought to be done properly. That response, your response to that, or any non-response, I think I will distribute to the neighborhoods and get it on the websites as appropriate and print them out and put them in mailboxes, because that election is our last chance to have our rights exercised. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and city members of the City Council, good evening. My name is Dennis Jansen. I'm a lifelong Montgomery County resident and a 32-year resident of Saybrook. Tonight, as before, I come to express my firm belief that there's a better way for getting a much-needed elementary school built to alleviate crowding and to save Kelly Park at the same time. I'd like to make 3 points and raise a couple of questions. First, I continue to believe that the site selection process was deeply flawed and missed badly in not getting input from the 5 most affected neighborhoods. I should think you know that by now. In my humble opinion, that's not what I'd call government in the sunshine, but there is a way out. This can be fixed without significantly delaying school construction. Members of the council, I respectfully appeal to you to act with courage and stand up to MCPS's strong-arm tactics and offer the very buildable Victory Farm site to build the school. And remind them that MCPS needs to build the alternative access road with $11 million of road money that MCPS and Gaithersburg already have. When the kids in our 5 neighborhoods can walk to both the Victory Farm Elementary School and to Forest Oaks Middle School, and yes, our kids should be able to be zoned in to attend both schools to correct a major 20-year error for our local families, they should be able to do so safely without more cars, buses, and service vehicles coming into our neighborhoods. Second, the environmental impact of handing over Kelly Park free and clear to MCPS must be kept in the foreground. You've heard from many voting citizens about the traffic impact, the stream bed impacts, and the loss of sports and recreational space, so critical to the mental and physical well-being of our citizens. I trust you've been listening. Thirdly, I'd like to make a point about equity and fairness. It's already been made. While we taught our kids that life is not always fair, the recent news that our wealthier down-county peers in Bethesda have appealed to MCPS about building on parklands and gotten exactly what they want from Seth Adams just makes me a little angry. Don't our voices count? Why not here in Gaithersburg as well? And now to my final question. If your family lived in Saybrook, Whetstone, Audubon, or any of the adjacent neighborhoods, what would you rationally think is just and right and true? Wouldn't you prefer to see the school built on a workable, walkable, buildable location that preserves precious parklands? I certainly would. We voters are watching and paying attention. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Kaufman, Secretary, Audubon Square HOA. First, I'd like to take a moment to thank and acknowledge Kevin Roman, Steve Marquina, and Emilio Cabello for their efforts in assisting me in my endeavor to have MCPS clean up the forest restoration area at the west end of Victory Farm. Thanks to their help and a little perseverance, it's finally clean. Next, I think you've probably all seen the video. MCPS drops the plan to build schools on parkland. I'd like to quote 9-year-old Isaac Swears, Why would they destroy a park and make a school there? Gentlemen, ladies, I think that's one heck of a question. I'd love to know why they're not building it there and they're going to build it here. Thank you.
Who'd like to speak next? Come on up.
Good evening. Oops. Good evening. I'm Christine.
Just grab that mic. Yeah, there you go.
Christine Rumney from Saybrook. I know we've pointed out before that we have about 3,000 signatures from people who live near, use, even if they come from other communities, Kelly Park, people who have, through generations, brought their families there. You know, now their kids are going there. It's people from all of the communities, not just Saybrook. And, you know, we've tried to call this to your attention numerous times. That's almost 3,000 voices. And I'd like to know also what your position is, because we are going to be voting. And, you know, candidates say what they think, what they're planning to do, how they're going to vote about things. I think we have a right to know that so we can make informed decisions, because this is affecting our lives in a way that will never be able to be changed. And, you know, we've talked about the pollution, the environmental damage, the noise, parking issues, you know, hugely increased traffic. You know, all of the things that we've talked about and the loss of this important resource. I understand that new parks are being built on the west side of Gaithersburg, so it's not just Bethesda. It's the east side of Gaithersburg that seems to not matter to anybody. So why are we not important to you? Why are we being excluded? You know, I mean, I don't understand. And I understand that MCPS is famous for rolling over people. They can't afford to roll over all the wealthy people in Bethesda. They shouldn't be able to roll over us. Thank you.
Who'd like to speak next? I know we have some more speakers out there. Come on.
I'll give it a shot here. Good evening, council members. I'm Dina Saunders, president of Audubon Square. From what I've been reading lately online, that there are going to be new apartments being built in the city of Gaithersburg. Now, with the overcrowding in schools as it is, why would you want to build more homes here and have the schools overcrowded? We know the schools are overcrowded, but to have more homes being built here, that's ridiculous. I mean, we don't have enough space in this area as it is for more apartments, and we can't, and more traffic to add on top of that. It took me 10 minutes to get out of Audubon Square this morning with all the school buses and cars and almost colliding into each other and almost colliding into me. And I've got a little car and I'm a little person, so I don't need school buses colliding into me. I mean, I agree that we do need, you know, a new school, but not at Kelly Park and not at our expense. So please listen to your voters here. We like you guys. We want to keep you guys around. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but you know, it's, you know, it comes down to, you know, we need to hear your voices. We know, you know, we have an idea of how some of you feel about it, but on a whole, we really don't know. So it's important to our communities and surrounding areas that our voices be heard. So we need to keep Kelly Park. Kids in the neighborhood tell us, don't build a school there. We want to keep our park. If the little boy in Bethesda can tell you, why build a school on a park? Listen to the kids here too. It's affecting the kids in this neighborhood. So please, don't build a school on Kelly Park. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Hi, all. Pam Playstead, Saybrook. So when I was collecting signatures last year, or whenever it was, I did find a number of kids from the surrounding neighborhoods, and they love to go to Kelly Park after school, hang out instead of coming home and doing their homework. I wish I had sent my kid to go and hang out instead of making her do her schoolwork. If you all have kids, you know how important it is to kind of get the energy out before going and doing something serious. I really would love to just really respectfully ask for you to save the park. Just cut down some trees. I know that is an anathema to the city of Gaithersburg. However, I am sure it can be done with a lot of thought and planning. You are great at planning. And please save the park. Let those kids be kids instead of cooped up with their devices and who knows what else. They really need a great outlet. It's a great opportunity for them to meet people, learn English. I was talking to a guy who loves playing soccer, and he loves being able to meet other people and just have the opportunity just to network, practice English, and things like that. It's a valuable resource for every single socioeconomic level surrounding the park and outside of the city of Gaithersburg. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other speakers tonight for this? Yeah, come on up.
Buckle up. So, apparently there was a meeting.
Let's state your name and address, please.
Eleanor Davis, Saybrook, Gaithersburg. Lived here for a little over 30 years. Have seen a lot. Liked some. Totally disgusted by other things that city councils of Gaithersburg have done. This summer I was not at the meeting, but I was told that a council member told a group that opposed Kelly Park that MCPS has threatened to not build a school in Gaithersburg if they don't get Kelly Park. I don't know if that's true or not true. I haven't heard it or seen it in writing. But if that's the case, that really sucks. And I just want the council to know that we were screwed over royally 20 years ago. The Mayor Bohr at the time, Superintendent Vance told us that our community, because we were not part of a site selection committee or anything when they were taking the land from Mrs. Casey to build a school at Forest Oak, we were told that we were going to be able to go to that school, and we weren't. History is repeating itself. They had a site selection committee meeting where all of the surrounding neighborhoods were not invited. There was an email that went out to a property manager address, but it went into a spam folder for one community. I know that people on the site selection committee meeting, those members questioned why wasn't Saybrook and Audubon and the various communities invited to the site selection committee meetings, and there was no answer given other than, well, we sent an email out and didn't get a response. That's not good enough. So all I want to say is I want you to think long and hard about how you're going to vote for or against taking the Kelly Park site. And if you guys vote to take Kelly Park, I want to know, what is MCPS giving the city to screw us over for a second time?
Any other speakers tonight? Going once, going twice. Okay. If council members want to address their positions on Kelly Park, they're welcome to. We're going to have from the mayor and council at a certain, where are we on the agenda? We're going to have it after our public hearing on Royal Farms and Starbucks. I will note that just even though I'm not one of the people that you're referring to in that I don't have a vote on this, and I'm not up for election currently, I will say that none of us up here have all the information at this point on which to make this decision. The school system, if they are continuing to pursue Kelly Park, have not made us any sort of offer or put a deal on the table that any sort of terms for us to negotiate on or decide if we support it or not. So I don't think if they're welcome to say or handle this how they like, but they don't have all the information at hand. Next, we're going to move on to our joint public hearing. I'm going to invite the Planning Commission to join us.
Is there any way you can ask
Please do not stand up and talk during the middle of our meeting.
I'm just
Please.
asking you to switch the agenda to move that first.
Thank you.
For the people here. That's
Thank
all I'm
you.
asking.
Thank you. I just want to note for everybody, no matter what sort of issues we have here at the council, we've had some fairly emotional issues. We still have a rule of order in this chamber. And for those, I will not tolerate disruptions. So if anybody feels like they don't have control over themselves to sit in this room and watch us conduct business, then I'm going to have to ask you to leave. So think about it and make that decision, but I'm not tolerating disruptions. Thank you. Jasmine Forbes.
Good evening.
Take it away.
This is a joint public hearing on schematic development plan SDP-8198-2019. As shown on the monitor, the area that is subject of this application is known as the Spectrum Development. Development is bounded by Watkins Mills Road and North Frederick Avenue and is zoned MXD. The applicant is requesting schematic development plan approval for Royal Farms retail building, filling pumps, and a car wash, a Starbucks with a drive-through, and reducing building size for Pat Site B. The hearing was duly advertised on October 3rd and October 10th in the Washington Post and published on the city's website on October 1st. At the present time, there are 32 exhibits in the record files. They are referenced in an exhibit list in the files. The individual exhibits may be reviewed on the city website and at City Hall during regular office hours. Any objections to the receipt of any exhibit should be noted prior to the closing of the record, otherwise they be deemed received in evidence. I do want to give you a quick update on the Watkins Mill interchange. The state had let us know that the project is 80% complete, and the anticipated opening and completion is fall of 2020. So I will have Pete Henry, who's the property owner of Spectrum Development, to start with the presentation this evening.
Awesome.
Good evening. This is Pete Henry. Hello.
Welcome, Pete.
Well, thank you very much. 226 Spectrum Avenue in Gaithersburg. We've been doing this, working on this project on both the west side and the east side for literally decades now. And finally, the interchange is coming, which is wonderful. We held off doing the freestanding pads and instead focused on building the multifamily and the retail around the core, so that it faced inward, and we activated that with a performance park and a fountain, 32 jet fountain, and the restaurants. And we knew that at some point in time we'd be able to add some of the additional draw that would be necessary to activate that whole thing. And so what our residents had asked for is making sure that we had food, eggs, milk, things like that. So obviously it makes sense. And we had always decided to have a gas station there, but we really focused on one. And there were two of them that we thought were really good, but we spent time shopping each of these two facilities and decided ultimately that Royal Farms was the better of the two. And we asked 5 or 6 people about where they like to shop between the two, other than putting aside chicken versus sandwiches, putting that issue aside. And so we're very excited about Royal Farms coming, a beautiful building. It should be a real amenity. Second, Starbucks. Now, we own Barking Med Cafe, so you might think, why would you put that in? And the answer is, if you look at the greater good for the entire project, having the drive-through facility for a freeway exit location is more important than just the coffee. Now, we happen to think that Barking Med has great coffee, so we're not really worried about that piece of it, but we think that adding that additional amenity will be a significant driver for the traffic inside and the restaurants on the inside as well. We've not neglected the inline space. We have if you go over there, you'll see there's a hot pot inline about to open. We have a bakery that's coming in. We've signed a Greek restaurant. We've signed a Indian restaurant, and we have half signed a seafood, a spicy seafood restaurant, which would leave us with one more space. So we've put a big investment in now in the interior section, and we'd like to make sure that we had the additional activity from the outside. The facility, it actually reduces, there's fewer trips in terms of traffic. There's no impact on schools, as Jasmine's written in her report. I thought it was a very good report. Thank you very much, by the way. We think that the layout is consistent kind of with what we had always envisioned doing, except that we've been able to bring in the actual retailers now. So with that, Matt Walters will walk us through it. He is actually a licensed architect now that works with us. Has been with us for I don't know how many years, 6 or 7 years, quite often. So he put this together, so as opposed to me sitting here doing it, I'm going to let him do it. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Okay. So the first one is Starbucks. As you can see here, we were approved originally for 6,500 square feet, 3,500 square feet of restaurant, 3,000 square feet of retail. With the Starbucks on the proposal, it's reduced to 2,500 square feet. That gives them space for exterior seating and the drive-through. Let's see. This is their new prototype that they're looking to use here. They have a couple of color palettes that they're choosing between, but this is one of them, and this is the leader right now. Let's see. Next is Royal Farms. It's originally approved at 8,900 square feet of buildings, 4,800 square feet service station retail, and 4,100 square feet of mixed use in a bank. We're reducing this to just one use. It's going to be the Royal Farms building with 10 pumps. It's 5 double-sided stations and a 1,200 square foot car wash. Let's see, is there a pointer on here? So we've thought about, in the design of this, we've thought about the future access to the police station up in this top corner here. We've eliminated 2 approved parking spaces up there to allow for a crosswalk to the Humane Society property. Sorry, this is sensitive. So right here, we'll provide a sidewalk that goes from their parking lot across this street here into this property line, which will eventually connect to the sidewalk over here. So we've taken that into account, the connections and the grading as well. So the original layout had this fuel canopy facing on Paramount Park Drive, but that has been flipped, and that's to provide some shielding for the future Azalea residential project so that the canopy is not shining directly into the apartments. It also is more recognizable for Royal Farms from the street. It's what you typically see when you're driving down a major road. You see the fuel pumps. And it also provides a more convenient connection for the residents that live in this development to go use the convenience store aspect of this, or the fried chicken portion of it. This is their elevations. And this was something we have gone back and forth with staff about, and it's the right in, right out on the Spectrum Boulevard. And their traffic engineer, Mike Leonard, is here to state our case for this.
Hi, good evening. So we have met with the city staff a number of times and discussed this issue. The right in, right out on Spectrum Boulevard is very important to Royal Farms, and it's typically very important to convenience and gas facilities to have convenient ingress and egress. In this scenario, we would provide a right in and right out off of Spectrum Boulevard that really it does 2 important things. One is it provides 2 points of ingress egress, so it spreads traffic out a little bit rather than having everything happening at one access point. And if you are on Paramount Park Drive to the northeast and you're coming out to Watkins Mill Road and you want to go toward 270, the right in, right out would give convenient access for those motorists to be able to get right in and right out rather than having to go down Paramount Park Drive and make a left in and then to the facility and out. The staff has indicated they are in support of the right out. They raised some questions and concerns about the right in. First and foremost appeared to be a concern about U-turning traffic. If you're coming up Spectrum Boulevard, making a U-turn to come back and get into the site, I think they were concerned about that conflicting with pedestrians possibly crossing the crosswalk. And so we have offered a solution that would be a no U-turn sign. So people coming in Spectrum Boulevard would just simply come down and make a left in to the Paramount Park access point. We've done some literature research, and I have a memo, some literature research we've done showing that compliance is actually very good for no turn restrictions when there are reasonable alternate access points. If there were not the Paramount Park access point, we would agree that there would probably not be very good compliance on a no U-turn there because there'd be no other way for those folks to get in. As it is, they're pretty equal access points, so we don't really believe there's going to be a non-compliance issue or a safety issue with that. There's plenty of sight distance, and we think it'll operate safely. Then we'll continue to work with the city to make sure that we can satisfy your concerns.
Good. The last site that we're changing is Pad B. We don't have a tenant for this yet, but it originally was a 9,500 square foot restaurant building. We'd like to reduce it to 4,500 square feet of restaurant, retail, office, whatever we may end up finding for it. The reason we reduced it is to accommodate the actual dumpster enclosure that's been constructed on the site there, and to give the property a little bit more convenient parking. We've added, well, there are 18 new spaces there, but we're losing 6 to do that, so 12, a net 12 parking spaces. And that's it. These are the 3 sites zoomed out. This one's Royal Farms here with the new interchange. This here would be the Starbucks, and this is the Pad B right there.
Got it. Thank you very much for the presentation. Who'd like to go first with questions and comments before we go to the public? Lorianne, you're smiling at me. Does that mean you want to?
Well, okay.
Go right ahead if you like.
Go ahead, baby.
I don't want to put you on the
Thank
spot. Go.
Oh, but you're
Wait now.
right?
There you go.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I'm excited to see how this community continues to develop. See, as I live very close to the location. One thing that jumped out at me as I was going through the documents was the 8-foot difference, 8-foot, I guess, separation from, I think it's the car wash to the police station. Can you explain what it's neighboring and why it's so? I couldn't really tell from.
It's actually what the history on that is first of all, it's to the property. I think there's to the property line, and then there's an additional setback where they put a sidewalk in. So I'll have to double check the plans, but I think I can confirm that there's the first and then the second. One of the reasons that we've added this crosswalk was when we first did the deal with the police historically, they actually only cared about the entrance or the sidewalk running from Watkins Mill to their station. It was only in this round of circulation where Greg Hassan, who's a great guy, used to work with the city, is now over there. And he said, hey, how about a connection from this side too? And so we did do that. There is sufficient distance between, we believe, the car wash, and then the spacing, and then the sidewalk, and then the additional landscaping strip, and then the police station.
Okay.
And and so that's how it's been laid out. Does that make sense? But we can refine that as we go through and address the additional issues as we come back before you all.
Okay, I just think with the traffic from the gas station, traffic from, the 6th District Police Station, it'll be really busy.
Mhm.
And then I don't know what's happening with the other side, so I just don't know what that traffic pattern would be. But is that
The entrance in.
ramp, is that the crosswalk behind the pink?
Oh, go right back up.
Yeah, go back to that one.
Go right to that. Yeah, you see the gray there? Yeah,
That's- so
that
that's-
crosswalk. That's all on effectively our property.
Mhm.
And in fact, we have certain shared parking rights into their property as well, since they were going to end up doing and they're going to at some point do a structured deck over on that side.
Okay.
But we certainly want to make sure that they have safe, convenient access. But this access is exactly the way it was designed. And we've actually taken the time, Matthew and the consultants have taken the time to make sure it marries up with what their plan is, so that they don't have to demolish anything and reconstruct it.
Okay. I don't know if you have an answer to this, or your team, about the retaining wall that's supposed to come.
Go to it.
For Starbucks,
Well, I thought it was for the whole property. I
the
thought
only
it was-
retaining wall we have is on Starbucks. Let me find that. This, oh, yeah, is that better? Yeah, that's along there. This is a fairly steep slope here from Paramount Park Drive up to their pad. So that's the only retaining wall of the 3 sites.
Okay.
Is that retaining wall existing or to be constructed?
To be
as part of this?
constructed.
Okay. So can we go back to the last slide with the
Royal
gas
Farm?
station? Yeah.
Okay.
Why wasn't an entrance considered, or was there one for Watkins Mill going into?
Yeah. From the beginning, dealing with State Highway and with the county, the Watkins Mill Road itself is a complicated road. There is actually one entrance that's there, but it's only for the police station. When the police station is, and so once you give them an entrance exit, they really block either direction. So we had to decide collectively, as landowners and designers, where did that entrance go? And this was on the heels of 9/11. I mean, of the shootings, and so there was no question where it was going to go.
Okay. Now I see that on the side, perpendicular to Watkins Mill Road. I know you mentioned that you would put a no U-turn there.
Yeah, that would be.
Why isn't there?
Or it would be here.
Yeah,
Right
so
here.
why isn't it separated so that they could turn from the center instead?
This is missing, I don't know if there's a better plan here.
Are you asking if there's a mid-block left turn?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah, so there you can see the inbound and outbound side. The other exhibit wasn't showing coming from Watkins Mill, up Spectrum, to turn left at Paramount Park. And so we would work either to put a no U-turn sign before or after the crosswalk. There will be another sign there as a keep right sign, so it could go on the back of that So as you're coming north, it would be very visible, very prominent, as a no U-turn sign. And so you would simply turn left and head down to the Paramount Park access.
What about providing a median break just to
Yeah,
direct
that's what
traffic
that's what I
access to the...
Here,
was asking.
for left
Yeah.
in?
Yeah.
We don't think that the city staff would support that, and there would be queuing that would back up from Watkins Mill on Spectrum that would probably block the ability for people to turn left in. There would be no gaps for it. So we think a right in, right out can be done safely, efficiently. The left in would probably complicate things.
What's your traffic volume predictions for that road? I mean, maybe in the 20 years from now, we'll have more cars
Yeah,
around there.
today it's certainly not a problem, but as it builds out, you know, at the full build out, we projected the queuing would average queue, I think, was right around the beginning of the driveway. The maximum queue was somewhere back to the back at full build out of the center.
I think the bigger question is, how are you going to get people, if you don't live here, if you're getting off the interchange because you need gas, and you turn in there, you can't really see the second entrance back off of Paramount. You're going to turn on to Spectrum looking for an entrance. You're going to see an entrance. You're going to come to the end of the ride, at the stop sign, and say, how the heck do I get in here? The bigger question for me is, what additional signage are you going to have to provide to tell people that, okay, if you're going to Royal Farms, you keep going, you make a left, you go down this way, then you make another left, and then you're in the sort of back door?
That's an excellent question. It's one of the things we haven't put forward in this because the first ones we work with, it doesn't include the signage, which includes wayfinding. As we add these pads, when you drive up there, you're going to want to know to turn right to go to Starbucks. Same as when you're coming from the other direction, you're going to want to know which direction is Royal Farms or the community. So those pieces are integrated in the wayfinding signage package. Excellent question. But we kept the signage out of this application since it's just the SDP.
But you do envision that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, are you kidding me? Yeah, it's very important. Great question.
Lloyd.
Based on the sales at Royal Farms, are you familiar with whether Royal Farms sells more food than they do gas?
And we actually have a representative here from Royal Farms, so he should know. Come on up. This is Jeff Bainbridge.
Hi, I'm Jeff Bainbridge, Director of Real Estate for Royal Farms. We sell a heck of a lot of fuel, but we sell a heck of a lot of food, too.
Does food outweigh the fuel as far as sales percentage?
As far as, how about number of trips?
Well, it's really kind of equal. It's about a third of people get gas, a third of the people get gas in the store, and a third of the people just get store.
My question then revolves around the fact of considering flipping the retail site, moving that to Watkins Mill Road, and the pumps more towards the center, towards Paramount Drive, and that would allow more entrance. You can put the entrance then over Paramount instead of having to go all the way around to find the pumps.
Yeah, I think we looked at that, and as Matt mentioned, the typical convenience store has the pumps up front. And that's the thing that kind of gets people's attention. The canopy's like the biggest attention grabber for our business. The other thing is that when they developed the other side of Paramount Park, nobody wanted the canopy lights shining in front of them. So
It just seems to me, as was stated before, that to go all the way around to find the pumps, to get to the pumps, is a burden, considering you've got an access there, access point right there to 270. People will be looking for gas stations, and that's going to be a real prominent site. And I think you're hurting yourself here by not having the pumps more conveniently located to a road entrance rather than having to go all the way around. And I think that's the only way to solve it. One of the ways to solve it would be to move the pumps perhaps to another location.
Understood. We looked at both ways, and I think we felt this was more comfortable. At one point, there was another entrance on Watkins, or on Paramount Park Drive, closer to the perpendicular road, I don't know, what Spectrum Boulevard. But I think staff recommended that we take that away.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Could you program a queuing lane in that median such that you don't have the issue of a car stopping traffic if there is a buildup of traffic leaving the development, such that they could access directly into this? Was that considered, or?
We did not consider that. We could certainly look at that with staff. Based on the conversations we've had with staff, I suspect that they would not be supportive of a median break there. But we could certainly look at it with them.
Any other questions before we go to the public?
I don't know if this is premature at the SDP phase, but I don't think so. The facades that were presented on the elevations, I understand the argument by the applicant that we wanted to place the store closer to where future park and residential sites in order to kind of block the gas pumps from those areas. But in looking at some of the elevations, I guess I was struck a little bit by the fact that the rear elevation seemed a little bland, for lack of a better word, given that it was sort of the street frontage along Paramount Park Drive, which is going to be, I think, a major pedestrian thoroughfare and kind of engage the internal aspects of the overall development. I know you all, the applicant probably has, and the tenant probably has a specific model for what they do and how they build their buildings, but I'm wondering if you've had experience kind of dressing up sort of two sides or 360 degrees. I know you've got some good materials kind of represented there in the elevation, but not a lot of sort of activity on that wall, if you will.
I get it. I mean, this is a standard spec that we have. We can take a look at that. That's actually a very good point. We have other stores where they have a facing in the back that's prominent, and we can open that up and pretty that up.
I think that is an excellent point.
Thank you.
It also translates to the plaza that's on that side as well. So we've got some seating on the south and west side, and no seating on this side.
Yeah, but again, you don't want to look at a 50-foot wall, it's just brick and such, so we can pretty that up. And we may even actually put a rear door in there, too. We've had some stores with rear doors.
Great.
That holds for the Starbucks building as well. I don't know if they're here or you can send that message back, but the same sort of faulty siding is happening there, too, where your Performance Plaza is, their backside is facing that.
Not a problem. I think it's a good point.
That doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. Happy to feed it back to him.
Robert.
Yes, so I just want, not a question, but raise out of abundance of caution. I live in the Parklands community across the way. It's a shared, the developer for the Parklands is the same developer for the Spectrum. The developer has certain rights under the covenants and governing documents for my community, but I don't feel that's sufficient economic interest for me to recuse myself from this case. Anybody can object to that if they want to.
Pete, do you want to object to that? Just kidding.
We want to see it all go.
Anything from anybody else before we go to the public? Not seeing anything? Okay, this is time the mayor and council like to hear from anybody who'd like to speak on this topic. Same rules as for public comments. We ask that you keep your comments no more than 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record. Do we have any speakers tonight? Come on up.
Greetings once again, Pam Plaisted, Saybrook. So I'm very interested in seeing the drawing. Unfortunately, where I was sitting, and there was talk from council member Sales as far as where is the entrance exit for the police station. Is that possible to zoom in a little bit on that particular schematic?
Which one was it?
The one, yeah, I mean, just really zoom in, I'm really sorry.
On the one I just had up.
So again, where is the police station?
So this is only showing the buildings in this application and the buildings that have already been built.
Mm-hmm.
It would go right here. We don't have, I don't believe we have a graphic
Your
here.
exhibit 20 in the staff report at least has a ghosted in version of it if you want to use that.
Well, if you go to number 8, you see
Number
a
8.
tiny bit of it. I mean, slide 8.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Humane Society.
The blue.
There it is.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so
Blue outline.
the blue next to the Humane Society would be the police station, is that what?
So the police station would be right, Jason.
Yes,
gotcha,
but we
okay.
don't. It's not part of this application, so
Sure,
it
sure.
could change somewhat from that.
Right. Yeah, could you zoom, can you make it zoom out? Okay, all right, that's helpful to know so that it would be very close by. Yeah, I just was not able to see that very well. And perhaps for your viewers, looking at home or, a little bit later may want to know exactly where you were talking about. And then again, the pumps are supposed to be again where?
That's southern.
The pink area, okay, and the store is the pink behind there, okay.
And then the car wash.
And where's the car wash
wash.
again? Right there, okay.
Pam, I
Thank
want to
you.
make sure you have any time for comments.
Yeah,
because-
thank you. No, that's my comment. Like, I wanted to know exactly where it was. But
Okay.
anyway, thank you for considering, providing good questions, and especially traffic with Councilmember Wu, for whatever can be done to make sure that there's not a backup, but that people can access very quickly. And for, I believe, Chair Bauer also mentioned, how to make sure you can get in and out of that area without, and maybe it was Mr., is it Wiesel or Wiesel? Wessel, thank you. To be able to get in and out of that area, especially for people coming in and out of 270. I mean, you know what it's like, the mixing bowl and 270, thinking about those kind of concerns is really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers on this, please? Come on up.
So looking at what
Please
Eleanor
state your
Davis,
name. Thank
Saybrook,
you.
yada, yada. So looking at what was just posted,
Excellent use of yada, yada.
put on the screen regarding the police station and where the gas stations are, is it safe to put gas stations 8 feet away? You would say there was an 8-foot buffer? I mean, how safe is that?
Well, that's from the car
Wait,
wash.
please go. Let's go through all your comments and then we can respond.
That's it.
Okay, that's it.
I just wanted, safety.
Okay, so like from a code standpoint, Jasmine, do you want to?
Don't believe there's any sort of code for gas pumps, but the gas pumps over here, so the gas pumps themselves are a certain distance. It's the car wash that's located closer to the west property side. But Greg Assant from Montgomery County did review these plans, and they just want to ensure that this plan won't impact the police station, because there's already an approved site plan for the police station.
Right.
So they just want to ensure that whatever's happening at Rural Farms is not going to impact when they do come in to construct.
Any other comments? Going once, going twice.
So this isn't a question as much as a comment, but I think as it comes back to us for recommendation at SDP level, and certainly as a precursor to the site plan, just one observation is I don't think, what I see here are corporate prototypes dumped onto this site, and whether it's architecture, Ryan, you brought up the backside of Royal Farms, same thing with Starbucks, or just the fundamental massing and shape of the building. There are a number of problems that could crop up in site plan that could be alleviated very quickly if there was a little bit more of a tailored solution where the building is fit to the site, or vice versa, but in a very deliberate way for this site. And right now, it seems to be a little bit of a conflict between what is a rubber stamp prototype on a site that has some constraints or has some interesting but challenging ways that the geometry and the circulation and all that work. So.
Yeah, and again, Starbucks is Starbucks. They're a corporate behemoth, but we've hired a local architect, and they have what they call the Mid-Atlantic Plan, which I think has more flexibility, or some flexibility, as opposed to none. There were 3 or 4 prototypes that Matthew mentioned, and we'll look at each of those. We wanted to make sure that we presented it to you and got some basic information to take back to them and give to our architect.
Okay.
And so we will be back at you. That's a good question.
All right. Well, you have your recommendation.
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission hold their record open until 5 p.m. on November 25th, 2019. That's 35 days. With a recommendation to the Mayor and City Council tentatively scheduled for December 4th, 2019. Is there a motion from the Planning Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, that passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor?
All right, and our recommendation is to hold our record open until 5 p.m. on December 11th, 2019, which is 51 days, with anticipated policy discussion scheduled for January 6th, 2020. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
We are going to move on to. I'll give it like half a sec to clear out in here.
Cut to commercial.
Cut to commercial. Next on our agenda is from the mayor and city council. Tonight we're going to start with Councilmember Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the lengthy reading you assigned me. Announcement, Gaithersburg residents will cast their ballots. For 3 city council members on Tuesday, November 5th, 2019, polls will be open on Tuesday, November 5th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's no registration deadline as the city is offering same-day voter registration for the 2019 election. To confirm registration, please contact the Montgomery County Board of Elections at 240-777-VOTE. I don't know the numerals for those. But vote, 240-777-VOTE. Early voting sessions will be held at City Hall on Saturday, October 26th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Sunday, October 27th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Absentee ballot applications and ballots are available and can be picked up at City Hall or downloaded from the city's website, while applications will be accepted at City Hall until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, November 5th, excuse me. No absentee ballots will be mailed after Wednesday, October 30th. Ballots must be picked up at City Hall between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. For complete election information, go to www.gaithersburgmd.gov/elections or contact Elections Clerk Lauren Klingler at 301-258-6310 or email cityelections@gaithersburgmd.gov.
That's /, please.
Is it /?
People get it.
Get to the wrong place.
So I just wanted to, one, congratulate all of our appointees today, but especially point out that Ms. Rosenbaum has been already attending EAC meetings and is making significant contributions, including, I think you may be up for giving the presentation later, hopefully. Not today, but the annual.
She's just going right into the deep end.
Yeah, she jumped off, has been contributing, so that's great. Just wanted to say congratulations to Manna for reopening the warehouse. We all attended that this past weekend. It's a great community event. Of course, I'll talk about my favorite topic, which is the elementary school. I think it's elementary school 8.
It is.
Okay, just got that right. Just because so many folks come out here and gave their time, I wanted to address my feelings. I haven't been shy in sharing my thoughts on Kelly Park. My personal view is I think there should be a fulsome review of all options. I proposed the consideration of Victory Farm Park. I still would like to see it fully considered, and based on conversations that I've had recently, my hope is that next week on October 28th, when the MCPS BOE meets on their initial CIP meeting, that there will be some favorable outcomes on further consideration of Victory Farm Park. So I'll just throw it out there that I think that, well, my hope is that October 28th, that will become as a result of that meeting. That's it for now.
That's it? Okay, thanks. Ryan.
Thanks, Mayor. Just running down a handful of activities that I and a number of us participated in over the last couple of weeks, so members of the public know what we've been up to. On October 10th, the Public Works crew of the City of Gaithersburg went up against the Public Works crew of the City of Rockville in our storied annual snow rodeo competition, which is good fun, but also important training for our crews to keep their skills sharp in preparing for snow plowing activities the upcoming winter season. We did win the competition the last 2 years in a row. I'm sorry to say that this year it's a very close competition, very close on the points. But Rockville did walk away with the overall trophy, which means that we are now motivated to come back stronger than ever next year. But it is, it's a fun and friendly competition, and I was glad to come out and support our folks. On October 12th, a number of us attended the annual Restore the Joy Domestic Violence Awareness Luncheon. This is an event that Gaithersburg, in one form or another, has either hosted or sponsored over the course of many years. It's organized by a great nonprofit called Women Who Care Ministries. And again, it's to draw attention to the need for resources to support survivors of domestic violence, to try to prevent domestic violence, and to empower those folks who are survivors. to move on and be successful in their lives. And it's just a very meaningful event every year, and it's a great cause. Before I was elected to the city council many years ago, I served as the chair of the county's commission on crime victim rights, and I did a lot of advocacy on behalf of all kinds of crime victims, but in particular victims of sexual assault and domestic violence, and making sure that the county is able to provide mental and physical health services and resources, financial resources, legal resources, and all kinds of other supports that we're able to provide. We're fortunate to live in a county where we can have those services available through the county government, and the city certainly enthusiastically cooperates with the county in providing those resources. So congratulations to Women Who Care Ministries. About a week and a half ago, we had the fall conference of the Maryland Municipal League. Was hosted in the city of Cambridge. It was a great event. We had record-breaking attendance from municipal leaders from around the state, and we really had a good sense of optimism and energy about municipal government going forward. You saw some of that on display today as we did our Municipal Government Works Proclamation. And so I'm looking forward to continuing a really strong year as president of the statewide Maryland Municipal League. And this translates directly into a benefit to the city of Gaithersburg. Don't kid yourselves, folks. I mean, it's certainly great for all municipalities, but strong advocacy and working together with our partners around the state makes sure that we can bring money back from Annapolis to our city for things like road maintenance, to make sure that we can fight off state legislation that would otherwise preempt local control over a number of issues, including, as we all know, the small cell tower issue. So got a lot of good energy in the fall conference, and more to come. Late last week, I attended the Montgomery County chapter meeting of the Maryland Municipal League in Barnesville, up in northern Montgomery County. Barnesville is very small but charming, and they have not been as involved in past years in the Maryland Municipal League, and they've been sort of coming back with a vengeance over the last couple of years, so we're very happy to be working with them. We thank them for hosting us. We heard from the Montgomery Countryside Alliance. We heard from the Sugarloaf Citizens Association, some interesting issues that we don't always talk about here in the city of Gaithersburg that maybe are a little bit more rural but still kind of affect us as county residents. This coming Thursday, I will be guest teaching a course or a lecture on municipal government at McDaniel College, co-teaching it with MML Executive Director Scott Hancock, so that'll be kind of fun. Looking forward to that, and I'll report back on that to everybody afterwards. And want to wish everybody who's going to be participating in various Halloween activities around their communities in the city to be safe and fun. And for those families who are celebrating Diwali, which is coming up in the next few days, want to wish them warm Diwali wishes on their Festival of Light. As for the discussion of Kelly Park, I have had a couple of meetings, each well over 2 hours, with members of the community who are here tonight, as well as others, trying to talk through these issues, communicated back some specific concerns and to-do lists, and working with our city manager, who continues to sort of go back and forth on some issues that we're trying to continue to negotiate with MCPS. I know that the folks who are here tonight really desperately want to know, just clear cut, black and white, where does everybody stand on this issue? I could posture and I could, pander, but I don't think that would be fair to you. We do not know yet what the final details of the proposal are going to be. And I don't think it's responsible for me to say I'm for this or I'm against that until I have a better understanding of what all the details are. I like to think that I have honestly communicated that position to the folks in this room who have been following this issue during our lengthy meetings and during our email exchanges. I will continue to work on all of these details. I will continue to try to learn as much as I can. I will also be watching carefully when the Board of Education meets on October 28th to see what happens there. But it would be easy to say in a crowded room full of people who feel a certain way, yes, I'm with you. I want to be with you, but I need to know more about what MCPS is going to present to us. So I just think I owe it to you to be honest that that's what my position is. But I am always open to continuing the conversation, to hearing from you all. I promise you, I understand the argument about Forest Oak Middle School. I've heard it many times from you. You've been very effective advocates on that issue. I understand the concerns about traffic. I understand the concerns about wanting to preserve the park. We are listening to you. We are carefully listening to what you are saying. So the fact that we might not be able to say for certain what our position is without all the details yet from MCPS doesn't mean we don't hear you. So I want to leave you with that.
Thanks, Ryan. Neil.
All right, well, usually by the time it gets to me, all my items are checked off, but none of them are checked off today. So I'm going to go through them and then address the issue at hand. So first of all, we had an awesome Oktoberfest this year. The weather was perfect, the crowds were huge, but well managed. The lines got long because no matter how many vendors you add, more people show up because it's too much fun. So we have to make it less fun in the future, or probably not, really. It was a great event. The weather really cooperated great, had a good time. I didn't get out of my booth much, so I didn't see as much of it as I'd like to, but my wife and son had a wonderful time, so they told me to give you a shout out. I want to thank the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department, the city staff, the police, everybody that worked, all the volunteers. It was a great event. The day before that, I went for a long walk along the Muddy Branch, thanks to the Muddy Branch Alliance and some other groups that had their annual Volksmarch to show off the Muddy Branch Trail, which is, I think, a great gem of a resource that I've been personally enjoying for almost 15 years now, and has become better designed as the Muddy Branch Alliance and the Boy Scout troops have been realigning things and working to prevent erosion and marking the trail well. It's been getting more and more usage. We actually went from Quince Orchard Park under Great Seneca Highway along the trail, and then if you were hardier than I was and did the whole 10K instead of the 5K that I did, you could go all the way down to Route 28 and under 28. And if you continue, and if you're really hardy, you can go all the way to the C&O Canal and the river along that trail. So it's nice to have a wooded trail right near where you live so that you can enjoy the woods without having to leave town. Participated in the annual Leadership Montgomery Homecoming event a couple of days ago. As a participant in the program last year, it's always great to get a chance to reconnect with my classmates, as well as the other many people who have been through the Leadership Montgomery program, many elected officials, civic leaders, nonprofit leaders, and so forth. Participated in a couple of pre-election events, one with the Asbury Methodist Democratic Club. Thanks to them for holding the event. Even though there's not a lot of competition, it's nice to get out and have a chance to really hear from people. And participated along with my colleagues in a podcast that probably isn't on the air yet, but you should be able to download and listen to us soon on the Minor Detail podcast with Ryan Minor, and thanks to Ryan for that. Just to reiterate something and go a little bit deeper on something that on Rob's announcement, absentee ballots are available. I already have voted because I filled out the form on the website and they sent me the ballot, which was post-paid even, so I could fill in the boxes and send it in, and that way I can do other things on election day, which is mostly hand out stuff and talk to all the nice people. So that I want to make sure you know that option, and this Saturday and Sunday many of us will be at City Hall saying hello and having deeper conversations on this subject and many others, I'm sure. So basically Ryan said a lot of what I would say. The interesting challenge with this is there's no perfect solution to this, right? We know we need the school. Everybody agrees that we need more room for our kids. The question is where to put it. Montgomery County Public Schools came to us after their process, which you could argue with or not. I don't really want to get into that, but and we've come back with a list of requests for Montgomery County Public Schools on how to deal with this situation. Honestly, I wouldn't be as optimistic as some people would be about the Victory Farm site. There are many issues with that site in terms of being usable between wetlands and the topography and all that stuff. And I think the likelihood of the state providing funding for that site, given the number of trees that would have to be knocked down, is a huge challenge. So I don't want to lead you down a path of something that's not likely to actually work out down the road and have everybody think it will. The good news is at least for a few of the items on the list of things that we requested, MCBS has already said okay for those. And the other piece I'll tell you is that I've been saying all along that we've got all this road money, and if we need to make some transportation road improvements in the area, we've got, I mean, somebody said 11 million. I think that number was 2 years old, and the pot's gotten bigger since then because we haven't spent any of it yet. That money comes from impact fees as new homes are developed. So I think there may be a path. Some of the original idea of where a road would go has been blocked by some other stuff, but I think there's a way to get you another exit out of your neighborhood if that's really what you want. I'm pretty sure that your neighborhood didn't want that to begin with, but probably it's a good idea 20 years later. Anyway, again, bottom line is trying to struggle to put all the pieces together. Oh, I did want to say one other thing, because I want to take issue with something that was said, which is that we're building all the new parks on one side of town and not the other side of town. The reason is very simple. Your side of town is completely developed, so there's no empty land that you would build a new park on, unless we get some more land from MCPS, which is one of the things that was on our list. On the other side of town, there's a park going in near AstraZeneca because they gave a piece of land that they own to the city. There's a park going in on the site of the former Consumer Product Safety Commission because the federal government gave that to us. There's actually another piece of land they want to give us where the Nike missile base used to be, but we don't want to take it unless it's been decontaminated first. We probably don't want to put a school there for the same reason. If there's other land on the other side of town where we could build a park, I'm sure we'd be open to it. It's just that when you have an older part of town that's been developed already, you know, we built Constitution Gardens on a small plot and so forth. So if you have any suggestions on that front, we love having more parks. I know Michelle loves running more parks. We're open to it. We just need to have a place where it makes sense to go. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Neil. Lorianne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, by the way, go Nets.
Oh yeah, we all forgot to say that.
So I also want to thank our new and returning volunteers who will be serving on the Educational Enrichment Committee, Environmental Affairs, and Multicultural Affairs and Transportation Committees. We appreciate your service. I know it's a sacrifice to come to the meetings and contribute, but it's always helpful to have the voice of our residents included in our decision-making process. This month was also recognized, October, as Mental Health Awareness Month. I attended the National Alliance on Mental Illness's annual Heroes Award celebration last week. Their theme was Together We Are a Movement. I feel like there's been an uptick on mental health awareness, on raising awareness about mental illness, and there's so many resources in the community. I'm sure we all know someone who may be dealing with mental illness, and they made a really interesting distinction about mental health versus mental illness, and being very careful and intentional when you're talking about the two, and just knowing that there are resources available. So congratulations to the 2019 heroes. Dr. Jeffrey Bornstein, he's president and CEO of the Brain and Behavioral Research Foundation, and Angela Kimball, who was also recognized. And they had Dorian Gensler was the MC for the evening. So I also attended the fall meeting hosted by our president and the Maryland Municipal League in Cambridge, Maryland. It was a very busy weekend of learning about how to better serve our municipalities and our residents across the state. One really interesting breakout session that I attended was about bond bills, and that's when the city would work with our state legislators to get grants that it's money that we don't have to pay back to improve infrastructure or to expand on a nonprofit. So it's money that we can use in the community that doesn't that we don't have to worry about paying back. And so they get about $5 million every year. No more than that, it's $15 million every year between the House and the Senate. So they get $7.5 million each, and that is allocated to different communities across the state. I think we got the bond bill last year to help fund our police station. So we are looking forward.
It was a different one, but we've gotten bond bills a
Yes.
lot of times.
So
and we're grateful
I'm sure
for
we'll
it.
hear more about our bond bills this evening, later on this evening. So yeah, it was a great conference, and we're all looking forward to how we can learn how to reimagine tomorrow. And we also learned about the Census 2020. If you haven't heard, there's job opportunities, there's information. The controversial question that was supposed to be on the census won't be on there, so we're encouraging everyone to participate in the census. The federal government allocates money to communities based on the census tract, and as we saw in the GIS survey earlier, there's so many communities, so many apartments. We just want to make sure that everyone that's here, that we get the funding we need to ensure this remains a thriving community. I also attended the Black and Brown Forum for Educational Equity and Excellence. It was an event hosted by 2 local nonprofits, Identity, who is Diego Urabu. He's right here in Old Town, his organization, and NAACP Parent Council President Byron Johns hosted an event at Gaithersburg High School. It was really interesting because oftentimes you hear about the data behind school outcomes, or you hear about the personal stories. And so they actually combined the data. They showed the data, and then we had the actual real people who were impacted by the numbers. And so they're doing really good work at working with the Board of Education, the county executive, the county council. Everyone was there, and even the teachers union was also in attendance. And so it's just really good to see that attention is being brought to our educational system so that everyone who goes through MCPS has the same experience and can lead successful lives after they graduate, well equipped. So the Barnesville community was a really interesting community. I know,
in a good way?
Yes, in a
Okay.
really good way. They have like the country store. I mean, it's so cute. 59 homes. And I thought what was really interesting was the council member shared that she doesn't go to the grocery store anymore. She goes to her neighbors. She can get all of her products right from her neighbors. And so encourage everyone as it gets colder to...
Do our neighbors know about that?
Like pulling up carrots from the backyard.
So she purchases and barters, I'm sure. So yeah, and they were also talking about, small cell sightings, and, sometimes they're off the grid completely and they don't even have access to landlines or if an emergency happens. So it's really scary as we think about small cell facilities and the FCC rulings and where we're going to be deploying these instruments to ensure everyone remains connected and safe. So this is coming up November 6th. The Coalition for the Blueprint for Maryland's Future is having a forum on November 6th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Montgomery Blair High School to discuss proposed new school funding formulas and policy recommendations. You can go to marylandblueprint.org to RSVP and learn more. Dinner will be provided, as well as childcare and translation services as well. If you haven't been out to the Ag Reserve, I encourage you to check out some of the amenities that are available as we get closer and closer to the holidays. I went to Butler's Orchard. They actually ran out of apples already, so I had to go to the neighboring orchard. It was Waters Orchard. They also have a cidery, so I have to try that out next time. It's a really beautiful time to check out all of the beautiful things about our county. You can be in the urban area in 5 minutes, and then you're in the countryside in 20 minutes. So it's just really nice to live in this community. And I will, let's see, is that it? Yep, that's it.
All right. I will just add my.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to ensure that I address the Kelly Park residents. I think a lot of my colleagues have already shared the same sentiments, and I'm very compassionate and understanding to the issues that have plagued the community before and the broken promises. So I understand how, you know, our longstanding residents feel. I don't want you to ever feel like you're not being listened to. We listen to every part of our community without any favoritism on whether it's the east or west side. I just want you to know that you coming to these meetings, it's, you know, it's not ignored, and we appreciate it. It takes a lot, and you guys have done an excellent job of organizing, engaging, and communicating where you stand, and I'll continue to do the same. There really are no concrete plans, and I spoke with a few of the attendees before the meeting got started, and I think Ryan made an excellent point that until Tony brings back, you know, the information from the Board of Education, from MCPS, about what exactly we need to vote on, because that's where we come in. We vote yay or nay on what comes before us. There's nothing to vote on. So I can't tell you where I stand, but I do want to ensure that our kids aren't stuck learning in trailers, that our schools aren't overcrowded, that our numbers improve, and whatever we can do to support this effort and not slight the residents that have chosen this place as home, it'll just continue to evolve. But I hear you, and I appreciate you, and I thank you for your advocacy.
Thanks, Lorianne. I just want to echo the congratulations to staff on Oktoberfest. It was a fantastic event. I want to shout out to our former council member, Kathy Drisgula, who happened to be in town that weekend for a wedding. She and her husband, and spent a lot of time either at City Hall or at Oktoberfest or catching up on city stuff. It was great to see her. A couple of items of business very, very quickly. I received, all of us, I think we all received a note from Steve Silverman on behalf of the Chinese Cultural and Community Service Center, CCACC, which is located in the city of Gaithersburg, right on Gaither, and they serve hundreds of Asian residents. And the request is that we write a letter in support of a grant that they're going after from the Transportation Planning Board. And if all of you have had a chance to sort of glance over this and can say sort of nodding head, you know, thumbs up, okay, we can support that letter. The other thing is, I got a call last week from County Council Member Hans Reamer, who pointed out that since the state has sent the Quarter Cities Transitway project to the county, thus putting it in jeopardy, and since the, as some of you remember, some of you are newer than and weren't here during this time, but the county planning area, the Great Seneca Science Corridor Master Plan, which is right adjacent to the city of Gaithersburg, and includes the Johns Hopkins property and the former Public Safety Training Academy. A lot of the potential development that could happen there was dependent on there being a Quarter Cities Transitway. And so what Hans is planning to introduce tomorrow at the county level is to reopen the discussion on the phasing for that master plan, to reconsider ways to fund the Quarter Cities Transitway. He's talking about a potential special taxing district. And I think first he wanted to say, well, would the city be on board with that? And I said, well, I think the city would need to hear many more details. But I said what the city would certainly want to be at the table and be aware of what's going on, and certainly any special taxing district would impact the city, and we'd want to weigh in. So I'd like to at least ask staff to, since he's introducing something tomorrow in discussion at the county council, that you all keep your eyes on this. Michelle, now that you're filling this role, and anybody else, keep an eye on this. Keep us posted on opportunities where we should be weighing in and just dialoguing with them. So
I would hope that we would revisit the proposed realignment of that you had actually suggested to the state a long time ago that was summarily rejected. But given the last version of the plan for that line, where it would take 45 minutes to get from Clopper Road to Shady Grove Road, which I think I could walk in that time or close to it.
Fast walker.
I'm a fast walker, but it's about twice the time that a bus takes to get to that route now. The route needs to be revisited. It's a great idea, but something got lost in the translation over the years of developing that project. So
I totally agree. I think that particularly if the CCT is now going to be under the auspices of the county, we should take the opportunity. I know people from the county, when I talk to Sidney Katz, he says, well, we want to make a change on the Rockville side. Yeah, I think everybody sort of likes the idea in principle of the CCT, but everybody has problems with the way that it was, the alignment of it, and so maybe there'll be opportunities now that it's under the auspices of the county to adapt it to a way we think will work for everybody. Anyway, thank you, Tony, for keeping an eye on that, and I want to make one more announcement, in that we will not have any work session or meeting on Monday, October 28th, Monday, November 4th, or Monday, November 11th. Some of this having to do with the election, some of this having to do with Veterans Day and National League of Cities. National League of Cities is later, but Veterans Day and the election coming up. I would encourage everyone to go out and vote on November 5th. And the next regular session of the Mayor and Council will be on Monday, November 18th, 7:30 p.m. right here at City Hall. Tony, from the City Manager.
Well, very similar to that issue at the County Council, we've been made aware that Council President Navarro intends to introduce a resolution regarding Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments regional housing targets. I think some of you have been following this, that COG believes that an additional 75,000 units needs to be built beyond the 300,000+ units that are planned in the region.
Yeah, region,
by
not just
2030. In the region by 2030, and that 75%, I believe, of the extra should be affordable to median income households. The interesting thing is that the county's resolution supporting COG's position does include a specific number of units in the city of Gaithersburg. That would be, and Rockville. It says that they would commit to building 10,000 additional units by 2030, and that they expect 1,000 to be in Rockville and 1,000 to be in Gaithersburg. Obviously, the county doesn't have any authority here, but it is unusual, I think, for them to particularly name out two of the municipalities. So we're going to follow that. Again, there doesn't seem to be anything for us to object to, but I'm not sure it matches our long-term housing plan to add that many or that proportion of affordable units or anything else. It doesn't appear from the County Council website that it's been introduced yet, but we'll follow that as well.
Are they going to count that towards their allocation? Because
yes.
we have separate allocations. So there's a Gaithersburg and Rockville allocation.
They said 10,000, of which 2,000 would be in Rockville and Gaithersburg. And that a certain number should be actually they should all be in activity centers, I believe, of which we have a number of activity centers in the city, but I don't believe our master plan accommodates that number of additional units. So, I mean, we could go and say, your resolution is not particularly accurate or it really has any force and effect in Gaithersburg, but on the other hand, it's not binding, and, you know, I suppose we
Keep an eye
could
on it.
just let it go.
Well,
But
given
we will
that,
keep an eye on
given
it.
that the population of Rockville and Gaithersburg is each about 7% of the population of the county, and so we're getting about 50% more than our fair share according to that resolution too. So, I mean, I'm not objecting to it one way or another, but it just seems odd.
It does, and probably because the huge proportion of the activity centers are in the municipalities, and not only Barnesville's one, so it's, I think that's why.
Did
But
Barnesville get another 1,000 residents?
that would be remarkable. Another issue, I think it was the last meeting that Kevin Edders brought the artificial turf proposal to you, and that subsequently you got some information. I believe it was distributed by Neil, but maybe other people got it, about the chemical PFAS, the family of chemicals PFAS, that are the fire retardants in the sin turf. Staff is going to look into that. There's a study that's currently being conducted. It'll be out, I believe, in November. But we will keep you posted on that issue as well before we decide to move forward finally. And that's all my report.
All right. Who's doing economic development?
There's no report. Tom and Dennis are both in Nashville for the International City Managers Association conference. And I do not have a report from economic
Okay, well
development.
then we will move on to the travel policy, and that's you again, Tony.
That's me again. Okay, so we have a resolution, actual resolution prepared for you. I go quickly through the main points of it, subsequent to the discussion that we had back in September. Staff is proposing, keeping in mind this is your guys' policy, and certainly we're open to however you guys think the real world is going to operate. A $4,000 annual expense limit in general. These are just bullet points. These are not the comprehensive policy, but draft is in your packet. We are suggesting that spouse travel continue to be allowed with a $500 cap. I believe Councilmember Sesma wrote today saying that he might not think that that is quite enough. Those of you that are on National League of Cities or MML boards and committees would receive an additional $2,000 annual cap specifically for that purpose, but there wouldn't be any crossing over of the different pots of money. We did provide the average expenses for the last 3 years for those types of expenses. Local travel mileage, other than the limit that travel mileage specifically to city events, that travel mileage would be allowed everywhere within the city or the county with the provisos that you're attending, obviously, as a representative of the city, but you would not be reimbursed for travel to and from actual city events or meetings with city staff, for example, at City Hall. The meetings with constituents, which was not widely used to begin with, would no longer be reimbursed. We struggled with the whole issue of whether the occasional purchase of alcohol would be feasible from a management perspective, from a logistical perspective, and we just really struggled with that one. And we continue to think that we should not have that as part of the policy. And then there's a part about receipts that we continue to use. You could use the lost receipt form on a limited basis, but in general, you need receipts for things that do require that, which would not include things like the per diem. There's an additional question as when this would be effective. This discussion started with the budget, and we were expecting to start on July 1, but here it is October. We could, in fact, retroactively do an accounting back to July 1. There hasn't been substantial amount of travel since July 1, since the MML summer conference is in June. But you have spent some funds outside of the existence of this new policy. So we can start as of July 1, or we can start now. The amounts of money are actually pretty small. So happy to answer any questions. You also, I guess you all got Mike's communication. I guess he's traveling as well for his points.
I did have a question about the, were you going to say something?
You go right ahead.
Okay. I was going to say something about the per diem. A few of us work for the government, and so I know that Mike mentioned, depending on where we're going, like we were in LA last year, those expenses may be higher than normal, depending on the geographic location. So I didn't hear anything about the per diem change. I think Mike suggested that it's on schedule with the federal level, but I didn't know what your thoughts were.
We can do that, and I don't expect Doris will pitch in, but I believe that's already in the employee policy, that if you're going to a higher cost area, that you can receive a higher per diem. So, I mean, that's easily instituted as well if you want to amend it.
So the way it's written, it says that it's $66 unless you go to a high-cost area, then you have to request the additional per diem. I mean, why not just set it at the federal per diem rate? So
I think it's just because we're not familiar with it, or how many of different per diem rates there are in the federal schedule.
There's just
two.
one.
There's two. So there's
two?
partial per diems for the days of travel and full per diems for the days on location.
But the different geographic locations,
Many.
They don't.
there are many.
But you just have to go to the GSA website and type in a zip code and it pops right up. It's not a burdensome.
Well, so we know, Lorianne, I'm guessing you support it since you brought that up, and Mike brought it up as well.
It just seems easier to me.
Yeah.
I see there's
accurately
two.
represents.
Is there a third council member who wants to go this direction?
I don't have any objection to that. I think it's reasonable. I mean, presumably, somebody's doing a lot of research to figure out what the regional per diems are for the federal government, so we might as well piggyback off that research, I guess.
Yeah, it's reset annually or readjusted annually.
So we would amend, we would actually amend the policy itself, the policy document, to take out the upon request, and then we would modify that to say whatever the schedule is as amended from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do we go out of the region for travel? I mean, MML conferences are within the region, and maybe twice if you're going to the NLC annual conference and you're on an NLC committee, right? That's about it.
But Annapolis per diem is different than Ocean City per diem. It's different than Baltimore per diem.
Really?
No, actually, Baltimore's included in the DC area per diem.
All right. Well,
so I'm an expert at federal bureaucracy.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
That's special.
Hashtag pride. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So.
Okay, we can do that.
What else? Go ahead. We'll go with you, and then you, and then I'll
Okay,
speak.
so question about the language for the annual expense limit. The way it reads right now, I read it as being $4,000 split between 6 people. I think you mean 24,000 divided equally, right? Because the first sentence says the budgeted amount is 4,000. The next sentence says you're going to split that up equally between mayor and council. So I think there should be a 2 there to be 24,000 divided. And then this would divide
Just
it by
clear.
6.
We know we all understand the meaning. Just make sure the language says
Yeah.
that.
So just
Okay.
Is that it?
And then the additional allocation, I think there was a majority support for providing that to MWCOG and TPB members as well. I thought that was discussed and approved.
I thought Lynn mentioned something about that,
There was something in the memo of saying that that staff reviewed that and kind of recommended that we not do
because it's
that.
mostly just travel costs. I mean, there's no overnight. If there's a meal, usually COG provides it.
Right. There's a COG retreat, but that's paid for by COG, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and to the extent you have digits on that, I don't actually claim reimbursements, so.
Okay, so leave that as is. So what else do you got, Rob?
Oh, I have a little note here that says alcohol ? And a frowning face. But that's been addressed, so I will not address it.
All right, Ryan.
I have a few items. First of all, just a question on the averages. Staff provided some averages for us to just have background information on, the average amount of spouse travel or things like that. How are those averages calculated? In other words, if 3 of us bring a spouse and 3 of us don't, are you dividing the amount by 6 or only by 3?
How were those calculated?
I believe the averages are for all spouse travel divided by 6.
So it's only for actual spouses who
Your point was
travel.
debated quite a bit. And I
Okay.
believe that's another point that Mike made, that, that the actual spouse travel is higher.
Right, because if there are 3 or 4 of us who don't bring spouses, you're adding 3 or 4 zeros into that calculation and dividing by the total? That's what I'm asking.
I believe that's how the math was calculated.
So I think we should understand that when we're looking at data that says the average spouse travel is $400 or whatever.
Well, we asked to go back several years, and there wasn't any consistency. Sometimes a spouse would go, and sometimes there wasn't. So we couldn't say that Councilmember X always brings a spouse, and Y does not. So we just added it up and divided it.
Yeah, I'm personally a little bit uncomfortable with the
Yeah.
fact that we provide funding at all for spouses, frankly. But I know that a number of us bring our spouses, and I don't feel so strongly about it that I would, want to fall on my sword over that issue. And I think it's, even though it's not something I would necessarily want to have, I think it's within the realm of reason. It's something that, speaking for Mike, for example, who's not here today, we travel a lot for this job in order to do a good job for our community and to learn things at NLC conferences and MML conferences. For those of us who want to bring spouses because, we're traveling to do the work and we want our spouses to be with us, I guess it's within reason to have a little bit of a set aside for them. But if I had my druthers, again, without, going to battle over this, I don't even think we really should have anything for spouses. I think part of the reason to that is because every council member and every mayor has a different situation. Some of them have spouses who never ever want to go to a conference. And some of them have ones who are, who are game for it. And why we should be giving, sort of one council member sort of what it becomes a sort of inherent, advantage, benefit over another who's not going to use that benefit. But then you can also make the argument that, well, it's your choice whether or not you're going to use that benefit if your spouse doesn't want to come with you. But again, if I had my choice, without fighting over it, without making it a big, stand, I don't think we should have really any funding for spouse travel. And spouses can still come, but we don't need to have extra funding for a council member to bring them. They can pay for them themselves.
Should we call it significant other travel? Because it doesn't include domestic partners.
Right. What if somebody's just a boyfriend or girlfriend? I mean, where do you draw the line? So, I don't know.
What if you have more than one?
Hey.
Just leave it to the lawyers.
Anyway, if there's consensus among enough people to keep it, fine. But I did want to point out that the averages that we're providing don't necessarily tell the whole story of what it costs to bring another person with you. Because if you're adding in the zeros from all the other people who are going without spouses, it's a misleading number. So as we're considering what the appropriate amount of money is, if we are going to have a spouse travel benefit, we should take that into account.
I don't think we should have it, by the way, did I? Anyway.
Well, I have a few other things, but I don't know if we want to debate them
Let him
individually.
finish.
Okay, so the other one was, the idea is you give an additional $2,000 allocation to somebody who serves on a board or committee, separate and apart from simply attending an MML or NLC conference. If you're just attending an MML or NLC conference as a city elected official, a member of these organizations, going to learn some stuff, that comes out of your $4,000 bucket. A lot of us serve on committees and boards that meet at these conferences. Which pot does the money come out of when I go to the MML Fall Conference, which includes within the agenda of the Fall Conference an MML board meeting? Do I just pick and choose based on what's happening at the conference? I'm sure Lorianne's committee meets at the NLC conference during the agenda for the conference. So does it come out of the $4,000 pot or does it come out of the $2,000 pot? Maybe I'm being a little too nitpicky here, but I think we need to have a better understanding. No, we need to have a better understanding. Otherwise, we don't want to be in a situation where people are basically, getting an unfair benefit. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Maybe this is something for all of us or staff to chew on a little bit. But and then one teeny tiny little thing, which was something I mentioned during our last discussion, and I don't think I saw it in the PowerPoint, but it may be in the text of the policy. There was some language saying you can't get any other charges from a hotel, no room service, no movies, etc. But I had proposed that we allow internet access.
Yes.
So I think that should be in there.
And we We actually left it out as an unallowable expense.
Okay.
Yes, so it's okay.
We only list
Permission by
the
omission.
Unallowable. So
Okay.
That's allowed.
Oh.
Okay, so there's a specific explicit list of things that are unallowable. Anything that's not in that list is allowable. Okay. All right. So those were my issues that, and then of course the effective date, which Tony sort of already addressed at the beginning. That was a question I had as well.
I think we should shoot for like January 1st, just to have some starting point.
But it doesn't line up with our budget.
Yeah, let's
That's
just
sort
track
of-
it back to the budget year.
I'd say
Well,
next July.
Yeah, we've already passed the approval. It would make sense to.
For next July, or to backdate it to this
Well, it's
past?
forward. You
Next
can't really
July.
backdate things like this. I mean, you could in this case because nobody spent enough money to make a dent in this anyway.
Yeah,
but-
the fall
There you go,
conference
so let's do it.
is fairly affordable, so you haven't spent that much. And we could just as easily exclude the fall conference and just start on January 1 or something like that.
Or be
But if you want to
consistent with the
comply with the
budget.
2020 budget, you probably need to start before NLC.
I say we backdate it.
And NLC is coming up.
I don't have any strong feelings about it one way or the other, except that I think it should be keyed to July 1, either July 1, 2019 or July 1, 2020.
Okay, and you guys are for?
I'd like to ask the audience.
Thank you.
Phone a friend.
We've had some issues with that tonight. Let's just
Oh, my.
do our work up here.
They're sitting here very patiently, so,
So do you want to opine?
No.
Just pick a
July
date.
120.
20 or 19?
That's fine.
20?
Or January 1st?
I'll vote with the majority.
What does that mean?
I really don't care.
All right, well, I don't know.
Backdate it then.
I'm fine with 2019. I think that's fine.
So it's due
2019, 2019. All right, so we have two that are for 2019.
That's a majority.
That's a majority. I'll vote for 2019.
Okay, there you go. That's our effective date.
It really doesn't affect
That's how
it.
business gets done around here.
Pulling teeth.
Spouse travel. It seems like we're kind of splitting the baby here. It's like you can bring your spouse, but we're not going to give you enough money to do it. You're
we
still
get
going
it.
to cost you, so which I guess is better than nothing. It's one of those policies that is unique to us.
Yeah.
And has been unique for many years.
Many years.
I say we excise it.
All right, we got one excise, we got two excise. Neil, where are you on this?
I'd leave it alone.
Lorianne, where are you on this?
I agree. I leave it alone. We
Where's
don't
Mike when you
spend
need
a
him?
significant
No,
amount
Mike,
of money.
but Mike is
Why don't you supportive of it.
he's supportive of it.
Yeah, my
He's
wife isn't
supportive
going
with a
anywhere
cap,
with
I
me,
believe.
but.
Yeah, with a
let's leave
cap,
it alone
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not, like I said, it's not something that I
Okay.
would choose to put in there, but I'm not going to fall on my sword to take it out if, two or three of us want to keep it in.
And then kind of a more of a nuanced part, we debated whether the per diem came out of the $500 cap for spouse travel. If you're going to a high-cost area, I mean, it's going to be gone. So should the per diem be separate from?
Well, if it was separate, then it should come out of the $4,000 of the council member who's bringing their spouse,
It's just
right?
so complicated.
It can't be
Where
a
does it
third
come
pot of
out of?
money, right?
I'm just saying
So-
whether the per diem would just be, it wouldn't be count toward anything. The per diem would just be the per diem for the spouse. You could just do that if you wanted to do it.
I
Yeah.
would like the cap to be
That's
the
the-
cap for all expenses other than registration fees, which are excluded.
Okay, so, I mean, it's your policy. I'm just trying to hear what I'm hearing. So it sounds like we're leaving it exactly as
The mayor is shrugging.
I mean,
It probably makes it more fair that way. So if somebody wants to bring their spouse and it comes out of their budget, then they have to make a choice and not do something else maybe that somebody else might be able to do. If it's not coming out of the 4,000, if it's coming
It's
out
not
of-
allowed to come out of the
I
pool.
just want it to be
say-
500.
I wouldn't even have
That's it.
per diems for spouses.
Yeah.
I would just leave it
But I lost
some
that.
travel costs.
You said it would or wouldn't?
But
So
I
you're
feel
not,
like
you're not expecting to feed your spouse on a trip?
my spouse is never and will never come on a
Yeah,
city
well, mine
trip,
too, but
ever.
still.
She would rather do anything else.
I would like to make sure
4,000
Joni
you get
gets
paid
fed.
anyway.
Yeah. I think it's okay as long as it comes out of the 500, and if it goes over the 500, per diems can be taken out of the 4,000 of the council member. I don't know if
Someone's
that,
looking.
I don't know if that makes it too complicated
No, it
to
doesn't.
process.
It can be
but-
dealt with.
All right, I like that.
I think the
Okay.
key is the cap.
Yeah.
It's like an overdraft.
Per diem could come out, but other travel expenses for a spouse could not.
Oh.
That's $500 or nothing.
Out of the 500, is that what you're?
That's what I thought staff was recommending, is
We
that
said-
the $500 cap was on spouse travel.
Yes, and that included the per diem.
So I'm saying spillover per diem could go into the $4,000 of the council member account for their spouse.
But not travel.
But not spill over other expenses like
That's
airline
Wi-Fi.
tickets or something.
That's fine. All right, that works.
Is that cool? Is that a good
That
compromise?
is cool.
All right. I'm offering that as a compromise.
All right.
All right.
Are we good?
I think so. I think you can still move the resolution if you like.
All right, well,
I don't think it has.
we still have this question about the extra $2,000 and how that should apply, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to the two named conferences, that should always be out of the $4,000. Whatever happens there, happens.
Don't you have to
It's
travel a day
outside
early
of
though
those.
for the board meetings as opposed to, okay. So there's,
And they don't pay any expenses for when you're on the board. I
As MML president, they pay some, but I don't think other board members, I don't think they do.
Okay.
So that's probably the difference.
If you have to go a day early, we can figure that out. It's fine.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think it would cost over 2,000 for each organization.
I imagine
for
the 2,000
travel
will come
and the
into play much more
registration.
with the NLC travel.
Yeah,
since
NLC
it's air
travel is
travel
by
all the time.
definition more expensive because
Yeah.
you're traveling on planes and going farther away.
so basically no election, but so if there's a separate expense for the board, that comes out of the 2,000. You don't get to choose as a council member, I'd like to travel on the 2,000 as opposed to the board.
That's what I'm asking. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
It's earmarked to the specific named events, right?
Mhm. The 2,000 is definitely, 4,000 is a little more open.
Okay. So a board retreat, for example, or a standalone board committee meeting, as opposed to the
Yeah.
big MML and NLC
It has to relate to
conferences.
some board activity.
Okay.
You do that.
I'm all right with that.
Separate. Yep.
And how would you all like to be kept informed of the tally? I mean, is that something?
Informed of the.
I'd like a text
I mean, I
message.
assume you're gonna wanna
What's
know
your
where you
balance?
are.
What's your balance
I
towards
mean,
the?
I think every time we, put forth requests, we can get in our response, well, just know that you're here. I don't know do you want something more regularly?
I think monthly or
We
quarterly,
can put-
quarterly if that's easier.
You can put it in the monthly report.
I want whatever's
Just get a monthly
easiest
report,
on
but that's,
Doris.
you know, that's.
What would you prefer, Doris?
Whatever's easiest on Doris.
Quarterly, biannually?
We can do it in the monthly report.
Okay.
Part
That's a
of
good
the
place
city
for it.
manager's office.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
And we all know what we're moving here. Tony, you feel confident on all the terms that we've discussed?
Yes, the resolution will give us the opportunity to rewrite the draft policy that's in the package, and then
Yes.
we'll post the policy and make sure it captured what was said, and
Okay.
that's it.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 4-0. Now, let's see what we have next. See, Rob Robinson has anticipated that we're calling him, and he's probably correct. Yes, policy discussion. And we're going to start getting into the short-term rentals.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This is actually the consolidated policy discussion for all the amendments related to implementing and regulating short-term rentals. So this includes Chapter 24, application CTAM 8244-2019, changes to Chapter 18AA, changes to Chapter 3A, and the new regulations. The joint public hearing for the Chapter 24 and the consolidated public hearing for the others were both held August 5th, 2019. The Planning Commission gave a recommendation of approval for the Chapter 24 amendments September 18th. And the council's records for all four closed September 27th, 2019. And overall, surprising us, because I guess that means Kevin and I did a good job, we only received one additional public comment into the record after all those months.
You guys did do a good job. That is true.
So, briefly to summarize, the Chapter 24 defines the short-term rentals. It establishes the requirement of regulations. and it establishes short-term rentals as a permitted accessory use in residential zones. In addition to that, as mentioned during the public hearing, we also took a chance to refine and standardize specific definitions such as the various dwelling units in hotels. For housekeeping side, we removed the TND option from non-residential Euclidean zones, and we removed the meets and bounds requirement for the central business district, again, to refresh. That's to avoid the hassle of having to do a separate public hearing for a text amendment when really the master plan for both the TND option and the meets and bounds is the guiding document in the state of Maryland to guide rezoning. So it was just a cleanup thing and getting rid of unnecessary process. As I mentioned during the public hearing, all of these build upon. So as I mentioned, Chapter 24 establishes regulations. So then we did the regulations. Within the regulations, and this was an outgrowth of the various work sessions and input, both from council and from the planning commission and from communities that we heard from. The regulations also establish the need for a license. So that's where Chapter 18 AA comes in, because that essentially establishes the requirements for the regulated license. And then lastly, because you need all of these to be built upon, Chapter 3A is the one that allows us to apply the city's hotel tax to short-term rentals. So all in all, quick summation, the ordinance and regulations are ready by separate motions for final action should the council so choose. And of course, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rob. As I said, you did a very good job on this. Kevin Roman, who's
still recovering
from knee surgery, it should be commended for this as well. It's been a big topic to get our arms around. I think if the council is to adopt these tonight, we're taking the right approach. I know that the initial feeling of neighbors and HOAs is outlawed. No Airbnbs, no short-term rentals. But I think we're taking a more practical, realistic approach that we can't really stop it. So we should take this opportunity to come up with a standard set of rules that govern how it works in the city, that makes it safer, that makes keeping order in our neighborhoods more easily enforceable. And so I just think we're on the right track here, and I commend you guys for it. We'd like to be the first in policy discussion. Neil, I see you.
Just to weigh in, something I've said it every time we've had this conversation is the revenue generation here is so modest that it's almost not worth the time. But the whole reason for putting a fee in place is so that we can track where these places are and enforce any health and safety regulations. That's really what this is all about, is making sure that people are safe and that we know where these are so that there's no nuisance issues.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Neil with respect to the fee and that it relates to the cost of enforcing the ordinance, the regulations, and policies. I do still question the imposition of a hotel rental tax on these types of units, because they are already going to be taxed the personal income of the folks that are renting out the houses. But that being said, I'll support it as a whole.
Lorianne.
I'm supportive. I think they were able to address a lot of the issues that we covered in the last discussion. So.
Right.
Agree. I mean, we've already sort of talked this to death and have a pretty good understanding of why we need this. So.
Okay. Well, you want to start navigating through the motions here?
We've got a lot of motions here. Let's see.
You want us to go through the motions?
All right. I guess we'll start with.
Ordinance to amend Chapter 24.
I'll move the ordinance to amend Chapter 24.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0.
I'll move the ordinance to amend Chapter 3A.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0.
I'll move the ordinance to amend Chapter 18AA.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0. I think we got one more.
Move the approval of the regulations to implement and operate short-term rentals within the city of Gaithersburg corporate limits.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. Staff guidance, legislative priorities. Michelle Potter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I am joined by Barbara Zektek
And Barbara
of
Zektek,
Alexander
yes.
and Cleaver, PA. As we prepare for the Maryland General Assembly's 441st legislative session, which begins on January 8th, 2020, staff is seeking guidance on the city's legislative priorities. 7 intentions were included in your cover sheet. The first to comply with the Maryland Municipal League legislative priorities. One is to ensure that local governments retain local authority over the public right-of-ways, preserving the integrity of our neighborhoods and aesthetics of our community. An email was sent to our members of Congress earlier this month requesting they oppose the proceedings before the FCC. I did hear back from a staff member that Senator Cardin was the original co-sponsor of Restoring Local Control Over Public Infrastructure Act of 2019 and continues to support cities and towns. Congressman Raskin said that he absolutely supports our position. Congressman Trone's staff responded that they are pleased that we are part of a local government coalition and is looking into the issue. And today, Senator Van Hollen's staff stated that he questioned Chairman, I believe it's pronounced Pay, P-A-I,
Yeah.
about small cells and federal preemption, and met with the chairman about this issue in the past and submitted questions for the record when the chairman testified in front of the FSGG committee. They continue to monitor this closely. For the public, if anyone is still watching us tonight, the FCC is seeking public comment on these proceedings by next Tuesday, October 29th. For more information, please see the city's website at www.gaithersburgmd.gov. The second is safeguarding municipal highway user revenues through the elimination of the sunset that is due to occur after FY 2024. Return to full pre-recession funding beginning with the FY 2025 state budget. And beginning in the FY 2025 state budget, tether highway user revenue funding to the Consumer Protection Index as is currently done to adjust the gas tax rate. The third is to request that Governor Hogan include the final $1 million in the proposed FY 21 budget for the new police station. A letter is being updated at this time to be submitted shortly to the governor. We will continue to work with our members of the General Assembly on this endeavor. Number 4, and again, these are not in priority, they're just priorities. Number 4 is to advocate for an increase in funding for our overcrowded schools, working with the Board of Education in Montgomery County Public Schools. On October 15th, County Councilman Glass held a press conference to discuss his new bill, the Housing Impact Fairness Act, which would raise $100 million for affordable housing and school construction over the next 10 years. On that same day, an education funding workshop passed recommendations that would increase education spending in Maryland by $4 billion annually over that same time frame. As drafted, the plan would require state funding to steadily increase over the next decade until an additional $2.77 billion in state aid would go to schools in 2030. County budgets would also increase during that time period up to a cumulative $1.23 billion annually. New this year is to support a state net neutrality bill. The FCC abolished net neutrality, and the D.C. Circuit Court just upheld that action on October 1, but found that states could adopt their own net neutrality rules. California did so a year or two ago. There are discussions being held with Delegate Resnick, who may reintroduce legislation again this year. Number 6 is to advocate for traffic relief plans and support the best one or ones that align with our best interest. The city is currently participating in the I-270 to I-370 to I-70 Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration pre-NEPA activities. NEPA is the National Environment Policy Act of 1969 that established processes to evaluate the needs and benefits of a federal action and potential environmental impacts. There is also the BRT, the CCT, P3, monorail, etc. Staff are attending the Up-County Transportation Town Hall meeting next Monday evening with Senator King, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo, and Senator Feldman at Montgomery College. And finally, that we will follow and support county and state vaping legislation. On October 1st, 2 resolutions to adopt Board of Health regulations were introduced in Montgomery County. I will be attending that hearing on November 5th. If passed, the city would need to update its ordinance to follow suit. Furthermore, Economic Matters Chair Derek Davis has publicly announced that he will introduce legislation at the state level banning flavored vaping products. Finally, on October 15th, Montgomery County Council authorized a lawsuit filed in federal court against electronic cigarette manufacturers and distributors for violating Maryland and federal law by aggressively marketing their e-cigarettes to minors. Besides these 7 items, we are evaluating potential bond initiatives for submission in the FY21 state budget. These were formerly known as bond bills. I called the Maryland General Assembly Office of Legislative Services in an attempt to review the bond bill schedule. There is no longer a deadline for submission, and they are not considered bills anymore. The new procedure is as follows. The process is controlled by the state president and speaker of the House. We need to work with our members of the General Assembly to sponsor a project. Our member will file a petition that will read across the desk, and a hearing will be scheduled for the 2nd Saturday of March, which is commonly known as Super Saturday. We have until the first week of March to propose a project, but the sooner the better. And selected approved projects will be included in a memo to amend the capital budget. A few things that we had looked at going through the budget was the Old Town Community Museum Complex, potentially a project at Casey Community Center regarding accessibility, but we've learned that this is not feasible. Infrastructure projects in art and public places. Along with Councilmember Sales, on October 14th, I also attended the MML Conference SNAP learning session on the bond bills initiatives, led by 2 delegates. They stated that the members of the General Assembly like projects that include arts, education, museums, and human services. So they really liked projects that add a lot of value to the community. I then reviewed the 2019 Bond Initiatives Funding Report to analyze the types of projects that received funding in the capital budget. Of all the projects that received funding, 14 were museums, varying in amounts from $20,000 to $2 million. The total funding awarded to museums was $5,221,000 collectively. So we're sort of evaluating that as a possibility for our museum complex. So at this point in time, I wanted to turn things over to Barbara.
Thanks, Michelle. Good evening, everybody. Barbara Zektik with Alexander and Cleaver. I know it's late, and you just came from the MML Fall Conference, so I'm here to tell you about everything that has changed over the last couple of months, and a lot has changed over the last couple of months. You probably already, those of you that went to the conference probably already heard a lot about this already, but before I get into that, I do want to quickly touch on the bond initiative issue. I just want to make sure that it's clear that whether it's a bond initiative or it originates from the governor's proposal, the capital budget's the capital budget, right? So you have the capital budget subcommittees on each side. Your police station request, for which we have a pre-authorization in there for the next fiscal year, that will be seen in competition if you do go forward with a bond initiative as well. And I just want to make sure that's completely transparent and clear. The reason that we approached this last year with going through the governor's proposed budget is because we can get more money through the governor's proposed budget. Because as you said, Councilwoman, the bond initiatives, it's not a lot of money. It's $7.5 million per chamber, and it's cut into small portions. So if you have a museum and you want $50,000, bond initiative's great. If you need $2 million for a police station, we go to the governor and we get into the proposed capital budget.
It's like usually $250,000 or $400,000 at the most for a bond bill,
right?
Whatever we're calling it.
Right, exactly. And so for that reason, and it would be seen as a competition, because what they'll do is they'll divvy up the pot, that little bit of $15 million, so that each delegation gets some share of it. Each legislative district gets some share of it. So if your district already gets $2 million in the capital budget, you don't want to go up and ask for $25,000 for a museum, because they'll take your $2 million away. And obviously, I'm not a math whiz, but It's not a good deal for anybody. So that's
One
sure.
other thing to mention is that for the bond bills, you also have to have matching funds. So they're not funding the entire project; they're just funding a portion of it. So
Absolutely. So real quick, all the many changes that happened. There are three major things that are going on. First of all, we have a new speaker, Adrienne Jones, as you well know. September 6th, she made a huge announcement. She moved around about 20 members of the House. I'm not going to get into all those 20 different assignments right now, but she was extraordinarily clear in the announcement that she made that there are going to be big changes in the House. And from a political standpoint, I would expect it to tend a little bit more left. She was very clear. She is now making the assistant majority leader position elected by the freshmen. This is the first time this has ever happened. The speaker has always appointed the assistant majority leader. So now it's giving the freshman class in a new term a very big voice in the House. And that's one where the prior speaker, he wasn't quite as I don't know how to say this right on TV.
Different ways of doing it.
Horizontal. Different ways of doing
His
it.
leadership style was less horizontal, it was more vertical.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Major changes. This is important, and they had started to do this under Chairman Barvey's committee, your delegate. Moving forward, they're going to be placing the entire bill file online. So this isn't as much an issue for you because your testimony is public information anyway, but anyone who puts in testimony on a bill is not only now PIA-able, but it is now going to be on the website, and anyone can go on the website and see what testimony you submitted at any time. So that's important to know.
It's amazing they're finally getting to this.
It's amazing they're finally getting to this. The other thing they're just finally getting to is they have wired the House chamber for video streaming. So you should be able to at least start watching some of the floor sessions online, and by the next session, the 2021 session, they should all be posted online. So Speaker Jones has been very clear. They are moving into the 20th century technology.
The 20th.
Yeah. Of the changes that happened, again, don't want to get into them. Delegate Lukey, Montgomery County, is the new majority leader. Delegate Corman is the new Appropriations Subcommittee Chair for Transportation, so he's going to be your highway user guy. Let's talk about Capitol for a minute, because Capitol, we have no idea what's going on. So the second big thing that just happened was Delegate Tawana Gaines, the former vice chair of the Appropriations Committee and the brand new chair of the Capitol Subcommittee, resigned 2 weeks ago and pled guilty on the wire fraud charges. So she's completely out of the picture. So that means right now we have no idea who's running the Capitol Subcommittee in the House. So we are keeping an eye on this, and as soon as we know, we're going to talk to them about your police station, but right now that's on hold. Now, last year we had no issues in the House regarding this money, so there's no reason to expect an issue this year, but we still want to know who that person is and talk to them sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Speaking of Capitol subcommittees, the chair of the Capitol Subcommittee on the Senate side is Senator Peters. And the other really big thing that happened is President Miller has called a meeting in the next 2 days with the Senate caucus. And it is widely rumored, and this is just speculation and rumor, but this is what's in news sources and such, it's that he's going to be stepping down from the president's seat. He will still, the rumor is, again, this is just rumor, this is not fact, this is rumor, that he's going to remain in the Senate, but he's stepping down from his leadership position. And the person everyone is saying is going to get it is Senator Peters. Now, Senator King's name is also in the rumor mill. Senator Gazzoni's name is in the rumor mill. But Senator Peters may no longer be the Capitol Subcommittee chair. He might be the president, and we might know that in a couple of days. So everything is changing. We have no idea what's happening. And I'm sorry I don't have more clear information for you. That's all.
All right. Yeah, it was kind of clear. Everything's in flux. That's clear.
The only constant has changed.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work for us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right, so this concludes our presentation. Let us know if you have any questions or if you'd like to add or edit any of the priorities or if the slate of 7 legislative priorities is acceptable.
Questions, comments?
I like this list. I think it's sort of broad enough to give us a number of things to work on. I certainly like the fact that the first couple of the priorities parallel the Maryland Municipal League statewide priorities for the year. It's always good for us to be sort of in parallel and in line with the Maryland Municipal League. It strengthens our arguments and strengthens their arguments. I like the idea of going forward with a net neutrality bill support. I was talking to Lynn about this, I think, recently, and I think in the past, at some point, we did express support as a city for a previous bill. I think at the time, it was sort of less of a hot-button issue because everybody kind of thought that states didn't really have the authority to weigh in on this issue. Now that the federal appellate court has ruled that we do, that makes the bill, that much more important. So I think since we've already expressed support for this philosophically, it makes sense for us to go after it again this year when we can get some traction and actually it can be a really important bill for our state. Vaping legislation, I like the idea of supporting it. I mean, I think we, through the process of legislative advocacy, need to learn a little bit more about what any particular bill is going to do or say. But as a general matter, I'm supportive of that.
I don't think it's our top city priority.
No.
I think, but I agree. I do agree.
Yeah, and our prohibition, our ban that the city imposed a few years ago on all municipal property included vaping.
Yeah.
At the time, we had a lot of discussion about it. We looked at some of the early data on it, and we just sort of ultimately decided we were going to include it in our municipal prohibition. And so I think that's sort of a nice parallel as well to being involved at least in the discussions going forward on the county and state
We are
legislation.
very proactive.
Yep.
Any other comments, questions?
I think Ryan said it all.
I have a quick question on item number 4. You started the discussion of item number 4 by mentioning County Council Member Glass's legislation about tear downs. What's the connection? Is there a connection? Did I miss something?
There was just a press release that came out that it was the Housing Impact Fairness Act, which I could look into more, which would raise $100 million for affordable housing and school construction over the next 10 years.
So maybe the bill has a provision that puts the money towards those too.
Yeah, my understanding is it's focused on houses that are torn down and rebuilt into much larger houses, and it's a $100 million over 10 year that would be allocated to these. So I was just curious if there was some other connection of something that we would advocate for or against. That's fine. No further questions.
All right. I think you've done a really good job here.
Guidance. Thank you, and I want to thank Barbara for being here tonight.
We join you in thanking Barbara. Okay.
For her patience, among other things.
Yes. From the city attorney.
I have 2 things, hopefully fairly quick. The first is you all have probably seen something in the news about the National Prescription Opioid litigation. The trial in that case starts tomorrow in the Northern District of Ohio. That is a case where a number of municipalities and counties and states have sued manufacturers, distributors, and retailers of prescription opioid drugs. In that case, just so you are aware, all local governments are automatically a party to that suit. So technically we are, it's a class action suit, so technically we are part of that suit. We do have the ability to opt out of that litigation. If we do so, we would have to do that by November 22nd. And that would be if we were going to file our own litigation, which I don't really think is our intention to do. So if we stay as part of the class, we will ultimately receive some portion of either settlement or judgment that comes out of that case. They're developing a formula that's based on population, crime statistics, a number of factors. So we don't have to necessarily prove any damages. There'll be a mathematical formula as to what your percentage of recovery from that litigation will be. And they are talking settlement and the many, many millions and billions of dollars out of that litigation. Second, I did send to you earlier today, we did finally receive the opinion from the Attorney General office on our long-awaited request to get some guidance on city ordinances to ban firearms and ammunitions in city facilities and parks. So staff will be moving forward with reintroduction of that legislation, which we anticipate will be in December.
Great. Anything, well, there's barely any other staff here.
Dan Wayne, did you have anything for us?
Frank. Okay, well, not seeing anything from anybody else. Again, we do not have any more meetings until November 18th, so basically a month from now. I want to encourage everyone to get out there and vote on November 5th, and
or early vote this weekend on the 26th or 27th.
thank you for that, because I could not have named those dates. Until next time.
I could have.
Until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.